Recording. All right, I have restarted the recording. Laura, it's all
Wonderful.
yours.
Thank you so much, Kendall. Welcome everyone to this snowy and cold day. I'm very happy that we don't have to be outside and even drive anywhere. We can all attend from the comfort of whatever building we're in. And a special welcome to folks who are attending for the first time, or maybe just for the first time this year, which would be all of us. So welcome. I'm really glad to see so many folks on here today. If you are here for the first time, feel free to give a shout out in the chat, and a lot of folks will take the time to welcome you. So I'm going to go ahead and encourage someone to move that we approve and adopt the agenda. Do I have any motion for that, please?
This is Alyssa. I move that we approve and adopt the agenda.
Thank you, Alyssa. Anyone care to second the adoption of the agenda?
This is Barbara Love. I second it.
Thank you, Barbara. And all in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you, folks. Kendall, I don't believe we need a roll call for this, do we?
No.
Thank you. Okay, so now I would ask for either a motion to approve the minutes from November 2020. If anyone wants to make any comments or even corrections, we will listen to corrections. Any comments on the minutes? I will also listen to a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Jenny. The motion from Jenny Jackson. Any second to that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Michelle. We have a second. And all in favor of adopting and approving these minutes, please say aye.
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 Do we have any opposition to approving these minutes? All right, I think we can say we've successfully approved the minutes from November 2020. And I will turn the next section over to Alyssa for the Board of Directors report.
All right, thank you, Laura. So in super exciting news, the RSA NFP audit is complete. I know you were all waiting with bated breaths for that. So the other thing the board did yesterday was approve the updated budget, which Kendall will cover later. And then the other big action item was that we have directed the circulation committee to draft a policy regarding personal information and receipts and what should be on receipts. So Kendall will be talking later today about PII. And this is just your friendly reminder that patron barcodes don't need to be on receipts, especially receipts in transit. And just a reminder for those of you who don't know that you can actually edit what is on your patron receipts, and that's a local setting, and there are instructions about that. And maybe it's time to look at your receipts and see what kind of information's on there and make sure that you're not, you know, listing items on receipts, patron information on receipts that maybe you don't need to, because sometimes there are nefarious patrons out there, but sometimes there's not. But anyway, it's just good practice. So we will be looking at a policy about that this year at some point. So that is my brief and super exciting with the reindeer antlers update.
Thank you, Reindeer President Alyssa. If anyone has any questions about the personally identifiable information, Kendall and other RSA staff is going to be talking about that later on. And for those of you who did not know the information that Alyssa just shared with you regarding the receipts or transit slips, or pretty much almost anything you print out of the computer, if you didn't know that you could alter that, you could change things around, make yourself a note right now to look into that, because that's going to be important. Okay, so Kendall, would you like to talk about the interstitial poll?
Sure. So we have several polls for you today. Oh, and look at that. My little note of where the poll is also shows in the poll title. That's good to know for the next meeting. So today's poll, the first poll, launch polling. Or maybe I have to do something. There we go. Oh, wait. Did you vote? No one voted.
This is the
Okay.
first time you're pulling
This
it
is the
up.
first time I'm doing it, yes. So the idea is, why did y'all decide to join users group today? Oh, so no people are voting now. Oh, very good. Oh, hey, I can vote on my little other screen here. So this is why I have, if you see something in the list of people that says RSA monitor, that's my other computer here, so I can see what I'm actually doing. All right. Listen in the background for things that may affect me or knowledge building are very close to each other. They're one vote off.
We appreciate honesty. We do.
I voted that my boss made me. I don't know who else did, but it's probably one of my staff members. All right, we've got almost everyone has voted. I appreciate that. We'll mix a couple of these in during the session just to see if y'all are still paying attention, and also to do a little cognitive reset every now and then for you. So thank you for that. The listen in the background for things that may affect me, 1 by 1 vote over knowledge building. So very interesting. Share results. What happens if I click? Oh, there you go. Okay. So there you go. There was the final total. All right. Well, now I know how polling works. That's very nice.
Wonderful. So now we have some committee reports. Kendall, do you mind facilitating this part? Because I will admit I don't always remember the heads of each committee. So that is my fault. I don't always remember those heads.
That's fine. The nice thing about this is basically what 2 years ago-ish, maybe we decided, it was the last time we met in Quincy. We decided that rather than give reports unless there was something super important to do, we would provide a written report of the committee's meetings. And if anybody had any questions, then they could ask those questions here. So there are not notes yet of the February 4th database committee. When those notes are available, I'm sure the cataloging team will send those out to the listserv. But we do have notes from the 27 January circulation meeting, the 17 November, 10 December, and 20 January RSA Day committee meetings notes. And member services did meet on January 28th. And there are no notes from that meeting, mostly because I forgot to have a note taker join the meeting. That was an introductory meeting where we were kind of discussing the charge and trying to get some idea of the type of information that the committee was going to want to see to do their work. So are there any questions about any of these particular things? And Alyssa, if you're still on, can I put you on the spot for, mostly because I can't remember what I read in the notes 4 days ago or last week or whenever it was that I put the notes together. Where are we at with RSA Day?
Well, we are doing a simplified RSA day that will feature, shockingly, RSA. So we have,
It's
yeah,
back,
Anna.
back to basics with a numeral 2, like a Prince song.
So
No.
yes, there will
Anyway.
be exciting things this spring on video.
All right,
Bring your cat faces.
thank you. All right, no other questions on the committee notes.
I will go ahead and make a comment that I do encourage everyone present to read through the notes. I know that it's a whole nother document, and I'm sure you just had time to print the agenda before today's meeting, but please do read through the notes. This is helpful information for everyone, and these committee notes are given to you in such a way that if there is a topic that you see listed that you think, oh, they're just starting to talk about that topic, but it's something that you're really passionate about, or you get a sense that, oh, if they change that, I'm not going to like that. If they change that, guess what? Start, contact someone, if nothing else, contact the help desk and say, who can I talk to? Am I allowed to come to the next committee meeting? I really want to talk to someone about this. Now's the time to let your opinion be known and start in on the conversation and see where that leads. And you're going to hear this from me often, but I will reiterate something that was in the notes from the circulation committee meeting. If you have not lately, please look at your L2 account and double check that information is not only correct there, but if you have like 2 main email addresses, but you want RSA things to go to one and Rails things to go to another, or whatever works in your head, talk to RSA, talk to them now, send something to the help desk and talk to them about that information. So there you go. You're going to hear that from me a lot this year about make sure information is accurate in L2. Okay.
There was a question in the chat about
Here we
where
go.
you would find the minutes and the notes and all of that. On the RSA Users Group info and documents page, which you get to from our support site, RSA Board Committee and Groups page. The meeting documents are links 1, 2, 3, and 4. The notes are under link number 1 today. And just so you know, after the meeting, the YouTube, we will update and send this to YouTube as a video. The PowerPoint presentation will be turned into a PDF and posted here. And the state of the RSA report will be posted on this link right here. So just so you know where things are at.
Thank you very much, Kendall. Corey, I see your question regarding developments for cards for veterans, school children, etc. That is going to be brought up a bit later on our agenda. So just please hold tight, and hopefully you can still be around when we're discussing that. It's going to be in section 8.
All right. Then traditionally, also from that same meeting that happened in Quincy several years ago, whatever that was, we had also decided that a lot of the information that RSA had traditionally, I don't want to say droned on about, but sometimes, we have turned into a written package, and we put that out, and then we just ask for questions on it. Some things we will end up covering later, so there'll be a strat plan update later. Anna's gonna talk about the on-shelf items and pick list refresher stuff, and we've got a question for you about that. But the rest of it is reading material, and I will show you. There is one thing that I wanted to show all of you, and that is on the front page of our website. There's a picture of this in the written package, but we've added a bunch more of online forms that you can click on and fill out. The cataloging request and report request forms are here. Last month we had talked about the library contact, or I'm sorry, not that, but I'm thinking a completely different meeting. Sorry, everyone. We also have a library contact update form, and that is basically allows you to update your library's office hours or phone number or email. Basically anything that your patrons see in RSA CAT that is a contact point for your library. That could be in RSA CAT or in the mobile apps. If you want to get those updated, we've got a contact information update form there. We did send out an email last month. That's where my mind was going. We sent out an email last month with a link to a form that would allow you to change your new help desk preferred contact email. That is linked here. We've linked to the suggested topic for RSA Users Group. That'll be here all the time. If you come up with a topic that you'd like to see us talk about or a comment or a suggestion for Users Group, go ahead and fill out the form. That'll come to me and I will go ahead and update the agenda for the next meeting. And then finally, there's a form here that will open a new help desk case. And there will be more forms rolling out in the near future as well. And one last thing I want to talk about, it is not an agenda item on the users group agenda because I forgot about it until I had sent the agenda out, but we will be running an election in May. There are 4 board seats and the users group vice chair position will all be open. So Laura has kindly volunteered to be our election wrangler. You volunteered, right, Laura? You weren't forced in any way?
I volunteered.
She will be our election wrangler. So you'll see an email coming out from her in the next week or two asking for volunteers. But I put the list of the positions and how long you serve and what you do. The users group vice chair position is 2 years. And the users group chair and vice chair also serve on the board of directors. So actually all 5 of those positions are board positions as well as the one being a users group dual position. But the list of those things are out in May. We'll have kind of a final wrap up of this at the May users group meeting, and then we will vote in mid-May. We'll do an online vote so every library has a chance to vote, and then we will announce after that, after the election is finished, who the new board members and users group vice chair are. Does anybody have any questions about any of these things that aren't going to be covered later? All right. We will do poll number 2.
Poll number 2.
So, which of the following weather events best describes your mood today? These are not necessarily the greatest of polls. Oh, my rainbow and double rainbow icons didn't show up. Neither did rainy. Oh, that's very upsetting. I'm going double rainbow because a single rainbow is not enough. Ooh, cloudy. Cloudy seems to be our champion, slightly beating out sunny. 50 of 58, 86%. All right, nice job, everyone. Let's take a look at the results. And everyone is feeling a little cloudy. I can tell you here in East Peoria, it is not only cloudy, but snowing, and it was quite slick out there at lunch today. So it's probably a good thing this is a Zoom meeting and not an in-person meeting.
Indeed.
All right, now it's time for me to blather on. We have a new person in RSA, our new member services user experience coordinator, Tony Hahn. started on January 11th, the day before the new help desk went live. Tony, if you would unmute your mic and introduce yourself and give us a little background on you.
Sure. Hi, I'm coming from the northwest suburbs of Chicago. I've been working in libraries for about 10 years. I got my first part-time library job in IT back at my home library, just very part-time. And from there, ended, I got my MLIS. I was a reference librarian at Des Plaines Library. Worked on website there. And worked on their like ILS migration project, which was from a Symphony system like we're on here to a Polaris system. And let's see, most recently I was at Geneva Public Library District, also kind of a western suburb of Chicago. And yeah, just moved to the Peoria area. Looking forward to working with everybody. I'll be working on RSA CAT and on member services team, as Kendall mentioned. But yeah, so far really liking it, and it's been nice meeting everybody and getting started on some tickets and learning the ropes. So looking forward to more.
Thank you much, Tony. If you fill out one of those library contact form to change your hours and or email address, which somebody just did, I don't know who, but I got an email that popped up that said somebody filled that form out. Tony will be the one actually going through and making all those changes. So he's basically in charge of anything that a patron sees or touches from RSA's side anyway. We have some anniversaries this quarter. Jennifer Choate's been with us for a year. Jane Bradbury has been with us for 2 years. So thank you for being with us for that amount of time. As you can see, most of us are still at home. There's a supervisor in the building pretty much every day of the week. We're still currently limited to 3 total people in the building, which we have today. I ended up having to come in here today because my internet at home was very non-cooperative. So I am actually at work today rather than being at home. But we do not have an indication from Rails when the change will be for us where we can all come back to work. I just have no idea. Okay, Erica, this is your section, so take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'm hoping you can hear me. I thought I'd just give a brief update where we are with rethinking our cataloging operations. I know we talked at the last users group meeting in November about why we're making changes. Essentially, remember, we just want to make this more sustainable, both for you and for us, because we realize the backlog has gotten deep, and you understandably, several of you have had very valid concerns about, now wait a minute, I'm submitting this, what's happened to it? Did it get lost in a black hole? Is it going to be revisited? So where we are with this, let's see, earlier last month, we did phase 1, which involved stopping the submission of some cataloging requests for bibliographic records that, yeah, they're not perfect in their level of description, but they're sufficient enough for patrons and staff to understand what the items are about and find them in the online catalog and in workflows. So we stopped the submission of the level encoding level 8 and M records is what they are. We also stopped having the fax option as one of the choices when a cataloging request is submitted to us. We were unfortunately just getting too many faxes where the RSA cataloging team, they couldn't read the information that they needed to on the book or the audiobook or the movie. And then it was delaying the turnaround time even longer because we would have to work with the submitting library to either get a clearer fax or digital photo of the part of the item they needed, or sending the the actual item itself in delivery. So we recognized the fax method was just delaying things even longer in terms of getting it out to the patron. As part of this first phase, we also now, what I affectionately call our stop chasing policy. To boil this down, we'll basically, if we need more information about a cataloging request, maybe the fax was fuzzy or we just can't read part of the item, or maybe part of it was missing, we'll send 2 emails within 2 weeks. And then if we don't hear from you after those 2 emails, then we'll just go ahead and shut the request. We'll let you know when we shut it and encourage you to submit it again if you still need our help. But we're trying to cut down on the number of cataloging requests we have living, just waiting for follow-ups, but nothing happens. So we've started the 2 email, 2 week follow-up approach. We're also, this is actually in progress, but we're getting to the point where if an item is sent to us for cataloging through delivery and it comes and there's no cataloging request for it, we'll be sending the item back to you. We were putting in some manual tracking on our end, but again, that was taking up more time. And then also things were slipping through the cracks. So we're trying to make sure everything coming in delivery to us has a cataloging request associated with it, so it doesn't slip through the cracks and it can be processed according to our different priorities. And then this last one is a work in progress. I'm hoping to have something to show you in March, but we'd like to be more transparent about our workload for the cataloging team at RSA. Some of the concerns we were hearing, again, completely valid. I had no idea there were so many open requests or what types of tasks they were doing. So we're trying to put together, Kendall and I, some statistics to help keep you better informed that will be shared on the listserv. So we're hoping to have something tangible to share with you. So that's where we're at right now. Notice there's phases 2 through 5 there. We're headed in the direction of reworking the OCLC connection cataloging training curriculum. And we'll schedule additional cataloging roundtables as we move towards these additional phases. That way we can talk about the plan in more depth, get questions, concerns, and really just give our members a chance to hear more about it as we move towards implementation of phases 2 through 5. So that's where we're headed. But as always, if you have any questions or concerns, maybe you've emailed us about something and you're thinking, that was several weeks ago, I've not heard anything, please call us. Please get back in touch with us with an email if you prefer. A phone call is always welcome so that we can take a look. We realize we've got lots of tickets and cataloging requests, so we're doing our best, but we realize sometimes we need a follow-up. So please just let us know. Thank you.
All right. Up next, we have the staff magic minute or two / methods and practices discussion. And this will be Anna. And Anna, let me know if you want me to put the documents up on screen or not.
Documents sound good. Let's start with the how pick lists work, a review. These are here. I'll while you do that, I'll put the link in the chat. So this is the first one is how pick lists work. So basically, this is of these 3 documents that I'm about to share, the only one that's genuinely a new document. We've just been getting a lot of questions about pick lists, basically, and why is this item on my pick list? Why is this one not? And it just seemed like there was maybe a need to kind of break it down in a little bit more sort of detail, kind of why certain items appear on the pick list. We will actually be updating this soon, hopefully in advance of the next newsletter post with some actual like examples and things like that of like, if you see this, here's kind of how we figure out what happened and what it is. But one of the big things that I do kind of want to cover is sort of how the pick list gets populated. And this is basically that first paragraph, which you all can read this for yourself, but I will still go over it. Basically, one of the things that is confusing about pick lists is we're all kind of used to, having, in the past gotten our pick lists in the Gmail account, and you get your 5 a.m. pick list. And then a few years later, we added the noon pick list, so you were getting 2. And then a little bit later, then the on-shelf items wizard was added as a feature in workflows. And so we started encouraging people to use the on-shelf items wizard to check their pick list, even though it's not, it's still the same list. I think there's a misconception, because I know I had it when I worked in the library, that the on-shelf items list is updating throughout the day. The list that generates, not the list, the report that generates the pick lists is the same report that populates the on-shelf items list. So the on-shelf items list is not in fact like a live and continuously updating list. This is getting populated at 5 a.m. and at noon when the pick list report runs. So it's live in the sense that as you pull items, they'll come off your list, but as patrons are placing holds, like if a patron places a hold at 10 a.m., it's not going to show up on your on-shelf items list until that pick list report runs at noon, basically. So, so at the beginning of the pandemic, we realized, well, based on requests from members, that a lot of libraries are pulling more frequently throughout the day to accommodate curbside pickup. Basically, this is, generating that, placing a hold is the only way to get an item because you need to place a hold so the staff knows to pull it for you for curbside. So based on that feedback, we added a 4 p.m. pick list. That pick list is not currently being emailed. That one is just basically updating the on-shelf items list. We didn't want to, initially we thought maybe this would just be a temporary measure because who knows, we'll be back at work in a month. Shows what we knew back then. But as the situation has gone on, and it seems like some level of curbside, even if we all went back to full in-building services tomorrow, I think a lot of libraries would want to retain their curbside services because now patrons have started to like that. So I think it's probably a safe bet that we're going to want to continue to run this afternoon pick list. So knowing that, we have decided that we're going to start emailing this to people. We didn't initially, just basically because we didn't want to panic anyone who wasn't pulling throughout the day and have them think, oh no, I've got to pull this pick list. So that's kind of why we had held off on doing that, but now we're going to add that to the email thing. So you'll be getting 3 pick lists in your email. I think Kendall and I are on the same page of saying you only really need to pull the first one or one a day, basically. If you miss one, don't go back. Like if you miss the 5 a.m. one and it's 11:45, just when the noon one comes, pull that one. Don't go back and grab your 5 a.m. one as well. Anything that's not on yours has probably been grabbed by another library. Just grab the most recent one, pull that, or go to the on-shelf items wizard and pull from that. If you are doing curbside and have that need, or if you have the staffing ability and you have people coming in looking for holds and you want to pull like your local pickup items at the noon and 4 p.m. ones, great, go for it. But if if your library closes at 5 and it doesn't make a lot of sense to spend time pulling 4 p.m. ones for the last hour of the day, don't worry about it. Grab your morning one the next day. Is basically what we were saying. So just with that information though, we realized there were a couple of other sheets that needed to be updated just because they kind of were reflecting basically there's only 2 daily pick lists. So we've updated everything so it matches. So we've also got the information about the on-shelf items wizard, which is the one that Kindle is currently displaying. Here's the URL for that one. And this, again, this is kind of some of the same information, but more bullet pointy and less narrative. And then the last one related to this is, this one's a little bit more of a brief single page cheat sheet about just how to use the on-shelf items wizard. And this has some instructions. I did go through and update kind of the instructions for the easiest way if you want to export your on-shelf items list. What I think is the most successful way to export this to Excel or something, and to get, you know, a spreadsheet that you can like format and sort and things like that. If you do want to, you know, for one of those later afternoon pick lists, you know, sort and only print off the ones for pickup at your library or things like that. So hopefully that is helpful information. Does anyone have any questions about that? It's a lot, I know. I talk fast. So I know Kindle has a poll or a discussion.
A discussion.
A discussion, not a poll. But yeah, basically though, if we were to add, how often would you feel that you had to pull your hold shelf list or your pick list? Oh, and Corey points out that you can also do basic sorting in the on-shelf items within the wizard itself by clicking on the column headings, which is also a very handy trick.
I think the idea behind this question is, okay, so we're running it at basically 5 or 6, noon and 4.
Mhm.
What happens when somebody calls and says, you know, it'd be great if you also ran it at 10, 2 and 6.
Right.
You know, we don't want to send those emails out to the Gmail list
Mhm.
6 times a day because, well, that's a little much. But running the report more often would update the wizard in workflows. And so, you know, that is a way that we can help some of the libraries that are doing more polling for
Mhm.
local hold pickup. But with the flip side of that is, I don't want you to feel like if we're running the pick list 3 times a day that you have to fill the pick list 3 times a day.
And the other thing I will point out is pick lists are an all or nothing thing. We cannot add pick lists for only certain libraries.
Well, we
So-
could, but the
Can we?
library that we ran the pick list for would get every hold in the system
you
that they
would
could
just get every single
potentially fill.
one. Yeah.
You don't want that.
To play devil's advocate, we at the Dunlap Public Library would feel that we had to complete the hold shelf list at least once a day. The way that our workflows is, and this is just the way our library, we do it in the morning, like pretty much even 10 minutes before we open the doors to the patrons. And it's usually quiet the first hour. So we do that, and then we get them tagged and we send them off or put them on our own held shelf. If we happen to have time in the afternoon or early evening, we will look at it a second time. And by the way, we always look at the wizard on workflows. We actually don't even look at the email. That's what our library does, because we have found that our community tends to come into the library in the afternoons and early evenings, into the evening a lot more. And so we just don't have time to do it 2 times a day. Usually we have time to do it 1 time a day. And that works for us.
So this is Henry and Elizabeth, and my staff would probably feel they needed to pull it every time it showed up. However, a lot of times from a business standpoint, we could probably run the library with 1 person here. But from a safety standpoint, the board has said there will be 2 people here. So it's not necessarily a bad thing if they pull it every time it shows up. You know, a lot of times we have time to do that.
A lot of good chat happening as well. It does sound like people will feel overwhelmingly pressured to pull additional pick lists if we run additional pick lists. Is that sort of what I'm hearing? You will be capable of ignoring them because you're probably just checking the on-shelf items wizard when you can anyway. Okay.
Joel with the most honest answer so far.
can always count on Joel for very honest answers.
I will say, this may be the next thing I'm supposed to talk about, so I might be jumping ahead. I will say, just take this opportunity to do the reminder that even if you're not using the pick lists from Gmail and are exclusively using the on-shelf items wizard, please do check your Gmail daily, because that's the only way you get your clean hold shelf list. And we do ask that those items actually do be cleaned. So, and then, so.
I think that's,
All right, any more discussion? So,
I don't see any questions. Lots of good information. We appreciate all the feedback. We'll capture all this and read through it again just to
Yeah.
make sure we didn't miss anything. So thank you for all of the feedback, everybody.
okay, so with that, Kendall, do we have a start date on when we would like to turn on emailing for the 4 p.m. pick list?
Well, I would say probably Monday,
Okay.
because that'll give me time to write up the state of the RSA report, hopefully. We'll see.
Okay.
And
Sounds
send
good.
it out in that. But if it doesn't go out in that, then we can send a separate, in fact, we probably should send a separate email anyway saying, hey,
Okay.
we've enabled this, but don't feel like you have to pull it, you know,
Okay.
if that doesn't work with your schedule.
Okay, so I will enable. Okay, and then if we were to add extra pick lists after we review all of your chats and look back over this, then more information would come about if we choose to do that and when that would begin.
You know,
But
no audio tapes have come in. What I've said so far, I haven't sent it, but we did have one come in. We called the number.
I don't think that was for us. I muted
oh,
it.
okay, I was
Okay.
like, audio tapes, what?
All right. Any
All right.
other questions about the pick lists? Okay, let's move on. So for 2 years, we have been working on replacing our outdated help desk, and we have finally done it. Yay! Although I haven't been able to start thinking about other things yet, we're almost at the point where I can. We are calling our new help desk Guru. I went through several different name iterations, including Cyber Martha at one point in time, just because she had just left and we're like, oh, we could really use someplace where all of our corporate knowledge lived, and that was Martha, and then Martha retired, and then we had no corporate knowledge. So we found a name, we stuck with Guru. That's what we're calling it. So if you hear us talk about Guru, did you send a case in Guru, or I'm going to look that up in Guru, that's what it is. It's our help desk, but help desk is a lot more syllables than Guru. So there you go. That went live on January 12th. You can continue to use the old email, the RSA help@railslibraries.info. That will be live basically through the end of 2022, I think. It took us multiple years to get everybody off of the local phone numbers and calling the 866 number. So I figure it'll probably take multiple years for people to stop using the old help desk email. The new kind of forever help desk email is help@rsanfp.org. When we do staff independence, that rsanfp.org email will be our domain email for all of our staff users as well. So we're getting a head start on that. So either one of those two addresses, all the email goes into the new help desk. So either one of those will work. When we email you from the help desk, the email will come from that help@rsanfp.org. So you will be seeing that in your inboxes as we reply back to you. I have been tweaking the help desk daily. In fact, I made another little minor tweak to the help desk about 20 minutes before the meeting started. We are trying to find and fix all the pain points that still exist, some of which many of you were very kind to tell us about right up front. We are seeing staff workflow and tasking improvements. A lot of the pain and that we had previously was we had multiple places where we would send each other tasks and you never really knew where to look, and things could get lost, or you were looking at this website, but you weren't looking at that website. And so it's all in one place now, which is nice. And all of the emails that any individual in your library opens all get rolled up at the library level as well. So we can find things a lot easier in the new software. A reminder, if you have a non-sensitive issue, please send it to the help desk. It could be my IP address is changed, although if you can't connect to workflows, feel free to call us as well. It could be, I have a question about a thing or a policy or whatever, send that to the help desk, please. If you have sensitive issues that you maybe don't want anyone to be able to just click at and see, go ahead and send that directly to whoever the staff member you want to send it to, right? If it's sensitive, we'll keep it out of the help desk, but otherwise it's better for us if it's in the help desk, because we have, like I said, the idea of the help desk is to be our long-term corporate memory. And so all those questions and all of those cases going in there help us build that corporate memory. If you do send something to an RSA staff member and it's not a sensitive type issue, we'll probably forward it into the help desk and open a case with it and then work it from there. And you should expect more automated emails from the help desk starting in March. And I'll talk about why that is March and not right now in a minute. So a tip from us, please keep one email per case at least. And the reason why we need you to do that is that that email that comes from the help desk has a reference ID on the subject line and in the body of the email. And that is how the system knows that the emails belong to the same case. So if you just respond to the email that came from the help desk, your response will be tied to the case correctly and everything will line up. If you get an email from the help desk and then you go, oh, well, I had some additional information to send, I'll just send another email to the help desk, and you just type, about that thing we were talking about and send it to the help desk, but you didn't respond to the email that came before, now you've opened another case, and now we have two cases for one issue. So if you keep the previous email from the help desk, at least until the case is closed, then you always have a place where you can just respond to that email and know that it's going to update the case. And when you when you send an email on a case into the help desk, not only does it check a box on the help desk to let us know that there's a new email on that case, but whoever owns that case in the help desk gets an email saying that you emailed the help desk on this case, right? So we know that you've sent an email in because it also comes to our personal inboxes. Right, and so I talked about some automated emails that the help desk sends. This is an example of one. Up in the top line, there are two important things. Number one is the case number. As you can see, we're already up to 2597. Actually, we're up to 35 something now. Lots of new cases coming in. But if you call up and you say, hey, I've got a question about case 2597, I can just punch 2597 into the search bar and 2 seconds be looking at that case. So that's important. If you want to call in, just tell us whatever that case number is and we can pull it right up. In the subject line, you see a reference, something, 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 something reference in yellow. That is the thing that the help desk software is using to tie any responses or forwards of emails to the case. So if you hit reply on this particular case, it's going to come into the help desk. The help desk is going to see that reference number and go, oh, I know what case that is. Let me just append this to the case and update the case. So that's how it knows. And that's why you need to save one email so that you have a single point to go back and respond to. This particular case, it says you have been assigned as the new point of contact for the following case. That's right here. That's basically telling you whoever owned this case, or maybe nobody, the help desk didn't know who this case was opened from. we then go in and look at the case and we go, oh, okay, this is so-and-so opening a case, and then we'll assign who that case should belong to. When we change the case submitter's name, you're going to get an email. And the reason you're going to get an email is so that you have this handy dandy reference ID so that you can tell us more information about the case if you need to. Then there's a little bit of information. This is kind of stock. You'll see this on any of the automated emails that come out, what to do with the email. And then below that, there are the pertinent case details. It tells you who's assigned to the case. So this is my case and I'm assigned to it. And then here's the information about the case down here. But again, just having this email so you can reply to it, that's the most important thing of this whole bit. So what gets automatically emailed out? When you open a case, the help desk tries to send you an email saying that you opened a case. And basically that email is, thank you for opening a case. Here's what the case is. And that reference ID, the very important reference ID, is then in the subject line. If you have a unique email address in our help desk, and we initially gathered all of our email addresses out of L2, if you have a unique email address in our help desk, the help desk will know who to assign the case to. If you're sharing an email address with someone else, then the help desk doesn't really know who submitted the case, and so it does not assign a person to the case. Then we manually assign a person to a case, and in that case, you're going to get another email back that says you've been assigned as the point of contact for the case, because we manually had to set that. You will get an email if an RSA staff member opens a case on your behalf. So if you call in and the thing that you're calling about turns into a case, we will open a case, we will set you as the account or the contact point on the case, and you'll get an email to your account email in Guru. And so starting on March 1st, we're going to start matching cases back to people. Right now, we are not doing this because, well, we generated quite a lot of email from people who were not real happy with the L2 email address accounts, which we passed on to the L2 folks because they, I think, had a different thought on what was going on. So in L2, you are required to have a unique email address to open a case in L2, and many of you used unique email addresses that were personal and you don't want work things coming to it. And so we put out an email I think it was maybe the 15th or so of January saying, hey, if you don't want to use your L2 email as your primary RSA help desk email, fill out this form. Oops, sorry. So when I showed you the list of the forms on the front of the RSA webpage, one of those forms was a very simple change your RSA help desk email, preferred email form. Just fill that out. It's going to ask you for your name and your preferred RSA email and your library. That allows us to look you up, make sure we've got the right person. And then we will update whatever your L2 email address was to whatever your preferred email address is. And like I said, on March 1st, we will start assigning people to cases again, and you're going to start getting these automated emails. So we have any questions about that so far? I don't see any in chat. All right, I will keep going. So case escalation. Let's say, Erica mentioned this before, but let's say you've opened a case and nobody's gotten back to you, or you're wondering what the status is. Search up one of those emails that the system sent you and reply to it and just ask for a status update. And again, the person who owns that case will get that email in their inbox, and they can give you a status update. We have not enabled automatic case escalation yet. That's on my to-do list, but I need to figure out what cases need to be escalated and what don't, because we don't want to escalate cataloging cases for cataloging requests, but we may want to expedite other cataloging cases if need be. So there is no automatic case escalation set up yet. So we kind of, if you're wondering where something is, you know, bump it, send it an email to us. You should hear something from us outside of cataloging cases. You should be hearing something from us in about a business day when you open a case, if not sooner, right? We may not exactly have the answer for you, but we should be getting with you. And if for any reason you have issues or problems, or you think maybe there's something that we could be doing better, please call or email me. If it's about a case, let me know what the case number is and a quick summary if you're sending me an email, of course. My direct number is on there, as is my direct email. Feel free to use that. And then I will backtrack from there to try and figure out what's going on with your cases. So again, we're here. If we're not doing a great job, you need to let me know. That's how we make things better. All right. So one of the things that we can do in this help desk is actually know what we're working on at kind of a larger level. So this is kind of a piece of a, not the entire number of cases opened in January, just little bits of the cases opened from January 12th to the end of the month. And so we've got the administration section. We had a couple of couldn't connect cases. This is part of the cataloging flow. As you can see, we had 403 cataloging requests, 23 of which were closed in January, for a grand total of 426 cataloging requests in the second half of the month. We can report it like this, and we can also, if you at your personal library, especially if you're wondering, you know, how the workload is affecting us, or, you know, how many cases are open or closed for you, you could request this at a library level, and I could run a report and show all of the cases in your library and send that to you. I will do that manually. That's a manual thing. I have to run that and then format it and then send it to you. I'd be happy to do that, not like monthly. This is not something that goes in your board report because there's not enough time in the day for me to run 145 of these a month. But if you've got questions about cases that have been opened for your library, or case counts for things that are open and closed, or what the status is, I can run a manual report for you that will, and there's lots of ways I can break the data out, but that's kind of an idea of what you could get if you were interested in it. Again, this is only for cases open from the 12th of January on, because our old help desk will not give us that kind of data. All right, so that is the end of the help desk. Does anybody have any questions about the help desk? Again, I think for you guys, the most important thing to know is that if your L2 email address, if you know what your L2 account email address is, if that is not your preferred contact point, please fill out the RSA Help Desk preferred contact email form on the main page of the RSA website at rsanfp.org. I will type that into the chat box. I can't spell RSA NFP. If you want to get to the RSA website, that's all you need to type, rsanfp.org. That will get you there. You don't have to remember that big, huge, long address. That will open up, it redirects basically to that big, long address. No other questions?
I do have one comment, Kendall. Thank you for including the note actually in the agenda for reminding everyone to keep the case emails until the entire case is closed. And you did allude to that. So I just want to draw everyone's attention to your notes that are in the agenda themselves. Very helpful agenda. And also, parentheses, folks should be keeping emails for a minimum of 12 months because of FOIA. So even silly, on the surface, silly little emails about, oh, could I have this report? Or, oh, I don't understand how these buttons work. Could you help me? all those emails have to be kept for a minimum of 12 months. So don't delete them for a number of different reasons. And if you have any questions or think I'm full of crap, feel free to message me and we can talk about that topic. So there you go.
Ask you how you know, right? Yes, Rails has also gotten some very, shall we say, interesting FOIA requests that have required, in some cases, you know, a day's worth of work going through my email archive to find answers for. So yeah, I don't delete anything.
Good plan. Good plan.
All right, moving on. PII. So about a year ago, before we were so rudely interrupted by COVID, we had started on a PII kick in RSA to start reducing the amount of personally identifiable information that we were sending out to people. So what's PII? Information that when used alone or with other relevant data can identify an individual, right? So in our case, that's mostly, and this is for public libraries now, mostly the name or the user barcode are the two biggest kind of identifiers that would help, well, would clearly identify a particular individual. Addresses and phone numbers as well. Those don't show up on too many reports. It's mostly usernames and barcode IDs that show up on things. This is a big, huge discussion point amongst consortia and other library users. Right now, in September last year, we had a consortial directors day, and there was a big topic of discussion, both verbally on the Zoom and it was kind of a running, topic in the chat the entire day of all of the PII issues people were having. And there are a lot of library systems and consortia that have just dropped, including that information to their reporting products, right? So rather than Blue Cloud Analytics knowing user IDs and first names and last names and phone numbers and addresses, there are a lot of consortia now who are stripping that information out of that reporting product so that they can't provide it. We have chosen not to do that because, well, it would make our life very difficult to help you out with more complex problems, and it would make our life very difficult to help you out with the things that you need to do that you legitimately need that information for. Paying bills, right? For schools, that might be at the end of a semester, knowing who's got what books checked out and who owes what bills and who has what lost items. If we remove all that information out of our reporting products, we can't provide it anymore. So we're leaving it in. But what we're trying to do is limit any potential legal action against us or against you, because it's both of our responsibilities to ensure that we are as protective as humanly possible with the people's identifiable information. So part of what we did a year ago, and these are still out there, is we implemented a library and an individual staff PII agreement. And basically what that said was at the library level, I as the library director, we as the library in whole, understand that we have requested access to reports that have personally identifiable information. And if any person who works in my library who also has access to these reports leaves the library, that we will inform you that they have left the library within 24 hours so that RSA can go back and remove their access from Blue Cloud Analytics and or any other individual user accounts in our systems that they may have. Because unlike workflows where, well, not now because people can hit workflows from their houses right now, but normally you have to be in the library to use workflows. But Blue Cloud Analytics works anywhere in the world. And so if you have a library staff member who's left the library, especially if they are a disgruntled staff member, we need to shut off their access immediately. So that is on that library PII agreement. And then the individual staff agreements are basically the same things, just the staff members agreeing that we're giving them information that, you know, potentially could cause a lot of problems if they let go of it or put it someplace where it shouldn't be. And those, by the way, those are out on the RSA website under our reporting products Blue Cloud Analytics page. You could grab them there, or you can send an email to the help desk and we will point you to them if you have not filled it out for your library yet. Or if you've got new people in your library and they, you know, you want them to have access. And when I say that, please understand that your library has access if you've signed it for your library, but what we don't want to do is then give every person in the library access to PII information, because it does no good if we give everybody access to this again. The idea is that you have one or two people who are the kind of report point of contact, or the person who's going to be using that information to do something actionable. And those are the people who we want to get the information.
Question for you, Kendall.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Regarding these PII agreements that you have created, you just said that if a library doesn't know if they signed it, if they can't remember, which staff members are listed, etc., we can just email the help desk and the RSA staff can help us. What will RSA do if you discover that such and such a library actually has no signed agreement, and yet somehow they were issued some Blue Cloud Analytics passwords, access, etc.? Like, is RSA going to start reaching out to libraries and say, hey, we don't have an agreement from you? Or should libraries be proactive and check our own status?
It's going both ways, actually. So libraries can, if you open a help desk, and you can ask and see who has agreements. Doug's got all of that consolidated, because what we've done is we've gone through, and every one of the 250 something people that have Blue Cloud Analytics accounts, we went through and changed essentially the access level of everyone who has not returned a PII agreement. Now, we're not 100% done messing around in BCA yet to hide all those reports. That should be done pretty soon. So what will happen very shortly is that anyone who does not have a PII agreement signed with us, when they log into Blue Cloud Analytics, they will not be able to access reports that have PII information in them. They will only be able to access reports that have aggregated data in them, or reports that are actionable in workflows, like here's a list of everybody with a bill type of thing. Am I correct with that, Doug?
Sorry, had to look for my mute button. Yes, that is correct. And I'm happy to answer any questions and concerns about this as it comes up. This is complicated and it's new to all of us, but it's already been serious in other places, and we've seen, yeah.
Yeah, so that's basically where we're trying to go. We're continuing to work on revising BCA reports to provide aggregate data rather than individually identifiable data, specifically patron checkout data. Again, we still run reports, and we're happy to run reports that are things that are actionable in workflows. So again, you go back to the schools. We know that schools need lists of who has what checked out, especially at the end of the semesters. We know public libraries sometimes need to get a list of everybody with a lost item in the last 30 or 60 days. Or, you know, can you give me a list of people with bills that, you know, might be, you know, their card has been expired for over a year and we want to clean it up, right? So there are many legitimate requests for actionable type reports that we'll send out, right? That's not what we're trying to change here. What we're trying to change is more of the things where you don't necessarily need to know who checked something out. You need to know what was checked out so that you can help with your collection development. So again, here's some ideas of this. I'll show you ways, a new way we've worked out for you guys to show some aggregate data that's super helpful. I'll do a demo of that in a minute. But again, things like, I would like to know every item that my patrons have checked out in another library in the last 6 months, right? And I want to use that list to look through it to see, for collection development purposes, I want to see what my patrons are checking out that my library doesn't have. Great, we can provide you a aggregated list of that data with all of the titles, but we don't necessarily want to give you a list that shows you Bob Smith checked out all of these items at another library, because the patrons don't want us to do that, and you don't need it for collection development. Holds at other libraries, that's another one that's a somewhat popular report that we run for quite a few people. These are all the holds placed by my patrons that my library doesn't own, or that were filled at other libraries, right? So again, collection development, aggregated data. And I want to just reiterate that patrons care about this. You might not think so looking at Facebook, because everyone is taking those nice little surveys on Facebook that tell you your father's middle name and the name of your first pet and what's the first car that you owned, and everyone is happily filling those out and posting them to Facebook, which are all common security questions. Don't do that. Don't ever fill out a poll on Facebook, because if you look at those questions, most of the time they're common password security questions, and those polls are being put out so that people can gather your information and break into your account. All right, patrons know anything that goes over email is sold by these big companies. They all know that. And it gets a little more personal when a patron takes the time to look up the RSA website, look up who runs RSA, then look up my personal cell phone on the internet, which is out there, and call me directly and ask how they can go to a library that's not their own library to check out some information, and they don't want their local library to know about it, right? One of the things that happened very clearly about a year ago was I got a call from a patron who wanted to know how she could place holds on some divorce items and some books about how to cope with an abusive spouse. She did not want her local library to know these holds were placed. She did not want her local library to have any idea that she had gone to a completely another library to check them out. She wanted to know if she could check these things out and place holds at other libraries, because she was not aware that her card worked everywhere. And she knew some people in the local library, and she didn't want the information to come out because it wasn't public knowledge. And she was just scared to death to use a library because she thought everything she did was going to be seen at her local library. And so I had talked her through how she could do all of that without her library really knowing about it, unless they specifically looked her up. And she was fine with that. She's like, well, they would have no reason to look me up, but I need to get this material. And that was one of I've had several phone calls like that over the years, nothing quite that direct, but other ones where it's like, how can I get this item so that my library doesn't know I checked it out? Or, I don't want the person that works at my library to see the list of things that I'm borrowing or whatever. So there's good reasons why we do this. Those were some of the ones that, really kind of clarified some of this was when the PII stuff was just really spinning up hard about a year and a half ago that this happened. And so that's where some of this has come from, where we're like, okay, you know what, we need to rethink the way we put out information so that we can provide you the information you need to run your libraries, but again, protect the patrons as much as we can. All right, does anyone have any questions about that? And again, Doug will put some emails out as we continue to tweak BCA because as a user, you may see reports go away or entire folders worth of reports go away in BCA. And if that happens to you, it's probably because you don't have a PII agreement signed with us, or you and your library don't have one signed with us.
I want to reiterate real quick that this is a growing process and probably not perfect as we implement it. So we're not trying to screw over your operational data or anything. We just want everybody, your patrons, your library, and us to be as safe as absolutely possible.
Yep. And again, if you've got something specific you're working on, we continue to do, can you tell me who had this item checked out before this person because the book was damaged and we're trying to figure out who did it? Well, of course, we're going to help you out with that. That's all fine. All right. Okay, so I have been asked by a couple of people over the last year or so what good aggregated data would do them. Basically, pretty much everything knowing that you would get from a list that had PII data on it, you just won't know who had it. What's the most fun thing about all this? There is a new report out on the RSA webpage. It's under our monthly statistics reports page in the RSA CATS section. I'm going to show you that in a minute. For those of you who don't know, we put a lot of monthly statistics up within the first couple of days of the beginning of the month on this monthly statistics page for the express purpose of making sure that you guys have the IPLAR data for the last year, in some cases going back to 2016. So how you get there, you start off on our webpage. Over here, you go to the monthly statistics report link, which is right here. Here are reports. We have circulation reports going back to January of 2016. You probably only need the last year or two. If you open up any of these that have a year, there will be tabs at the bottom of the report, one tab, and in some cases, two tabs per month. So if you open up this 2020 circulation report, you'll see checkouts for January, February, March, April, May, June, July through December in tabs at the bottom of the screen. And then you'll be able to scroll down the list each month to see your library's data. So if you have not been keeping all of your reports and you go, oh goodness, now I need information to go back to, March of 2020 through March of 2021 to fill out some state report or to answer a question, a lot of that data is available on this monthly statistics page. And we have different reports. We've got ADML and e-read reports. We've got RSA CAT reports. And we have this new one that's called the RSA CAT Patron Search Terms List and Related Data. So if you click on that, that is going to open a Google Data Studio document. Un momento, while the Google Data Studio thinks. This is something I've been working on for about a year, and it turns out that it wasn't working because of a very minor typo. So we have good data starting the 1st of January in 2021. There is December data in here, but don't use it because it's not good data. So starting January 1st, we have actual good data. And there are many ways that you can slice and dice this data as we move forward. You can look at last month. You can pick 2 dates. You could pick a single date. You could do this quarter, this year, this month as we move forward, and there's more data in here. You can look at all of RSA in total, or you can pick your library from the start page library. The most popular search in January was author equals, which cracks me up. We're still trying to figure out exactly what terms people are using to get to that. Bridgerton was number 2, and The Office was number 3. We've also got the search limit that people use to do their searches. So that's the one that's next to the home button in your RSA CAT profiles. Those libraries that have, like Normal, for instance, has a special search limit for the Internet of Things, right? So that their patrons can find Internet of Things searches. You would be able to see how often that was used looking there. So if we go, and we'll just pick Normal here. If you click on the drop down, you can search for your library, just start typing your name and it'll show up. Or you can scroll. You could look at multiple different libraries all at once. I'm going to click the only button, so we're only seeing Normal's data. By the way, there are some limited instructions on the more information and FAQ page right here. So this is now showing me Normal's data for January. Their most popular search term was the vanishing half. I'll bet you Bridgerton's in here though. Yeah, number 6, Bridgerton was number 6. I also had said that, we've got these search limits. So the NP Normal search limit is basically looking at their library. Movies were used 168 times. The juvenile search was used 111. And let's see, library things, NP Normal lib things. That is the library things search limit. And it was used 11 times in January, and 8 times the playaway limit for Normal was used. But here's a big long list. This is the long tail list. There's like pages after pages after pages of, of results here that you can search through. I think once you get past page 2, the search counts are so small, you probably don't care right now. But after we've got about a year's worth of data in here, this will be a lot more useful. You'll be able to get a much better feel for what people were searching for. Something else that might be interesting to you is if we go to the traffic sources and device information page. So click over here. Same type of thing. You've got the date range, and then you need to choose a library. As soon as this opens up. This page, the most important thing on this page is the traffic sources into your catalog part. So if it says direct none, that means that the people came to the catalog from a saved link on their website, or they directly typed in whatever your profile name is. So again, we'll look at Normal here. It also tells you if people are using their desktop or their mobile or a tablet. It tells you what operating system that things were used from. 4 Xboxes looked at the Normal catalog in January. normalpl.org is the top referrer to the Normal RSA CAT page. That's not a surprise. Library for Things sent in 2.83% of the traffic. That is the Syndetics, between the library thing for libraries and syndetics.com. That is the Syndetics enhancements on our website. So when a patron clicks on the Syndetics, more information about this series or information about the title, and it pops up, and then they pick another book, that's where that's coming from. There's some interesting things sometimes in here. Lexington Library referred 172 people into the Normal RSA CAT catalog. I'm not sure why they did that, but they have. Link.normal.org, link.whatever.org is that Blue Cloud visibility project where we're turning things into linked data and then uploading it to the internet so the Googles of the world can see things. Normal had 160 hits that came back from that in the month, right? If you have a good relationship with other city or not-for-profit organizations in your area, you may see a lot of traffic coming to your library from their website or from Facebook or whatever. So this will give you an idea of where people are starting when they come to your RSA CAT page. And then finally, there's just a little bit of information here about what these limits mean and what they say, and a little bit about how to use them. Again, you can get to that from the RSA CAT monthly statistics page. It's under RSA CAT stats, report number 4. And it says on here, it opens the Google document. So that is available for everyone. Yes, every person in RSA can get that. Tony spent a lot of time going through and doing all the design work on that, making it look pretty and getting all the lines lined up so that they don't trigger my OCD. And Grant Halter, who works at Rails, helped us get all of the Google Analytics data kind of pre-populated on that page in a manner in which we could actually sort of use it. And then Tony massaged the rest of it. So the fact that it looks nice and it's usable, that's all Tony. And again, anybody in RSA can use that. It is per RSA CAT profile page. So the public libraries, you're probably going to have one set of data. School libraries, if you give your kids the school district link and you give them the high school link and you give them the elementary school link, you may have 3 different sets of data because it's looking at it based on RSA CAT profile, and the schools that have branches, we've broken out down to the individual branch because typically the elementary school kids don't need to see high school items. So that's how that works. And at some point we'll put an email out about that. We just basically got that working about a week ago. So this was kind of a, well, we'll throw it in users group and then see how it goes. Any other questions about that?
It looks fun.
There, especially as we move forward and there's more than 1 month's worth of usable data in there, I think you're going to be able to start seeing a lot of things that'll be helpful for you, including people searching for very, very odd things. All right. This is kind of a poll just for me. I am very guilty of this. Do you multitask when you attend an online meeting? Ooh. Yes, I'm guilty is very much winning. Almost everybody's voted. 80% have voted. I'm going to guess at this point, the other 15% of people are multitasking and are not paying attention. So there's your winner. We all are multitasking just about when we are doing this. I am one of the ones who chose that I was 100% focused because in this meeting, I have to be focused. Normally in a meeting, the meeting will be on this screen, and on this screen over here will be actual work happening. So there you go. I'm just like everyone else. All right. We are getting to the end of me talking at you and you talking to us. We're going to cover the budget really quickly. Before I do that, I'm going to pause the recording. For those of you, oops, I'll have to go back and cut that. For those of you listening to the recording, I'm going to pause this recording while I talk about the budget. RSA as a not-for-profit is not required to put our budget information out on the internet, and I don't because I don't want vendors to see it. They have no reason to know what our budget is. That helps my negotiating position quite a lot when I'm trying to negotiate workable prices for RSA.
Kathy, we're going to call on you to explain that. I hope you understand.
How do you use a yo-yo in knitting?
All right, it was 2 different conversations about what we did in in-person meetings.
Oh.
I knit, Kathy made yo-yos for quilting.
Okay.
Because if I didn't, I played on my phone and paid even less attention to what you were saying.
And that doesn't hurt my feelings at all that you wouldn't pay attention to me. So there you go. All right, now that we've restarted the video here, again, another quick announcement. There is no fee increase for RSA fees this year. The board decided to leave those set. It's not a great time financially, and our Rails grant was pretty much the same as last year, so they voted to just leave it alone. All right. We have another poll. What poll is this? Poll number 4. All right. So what type of pet is ruling the librarian's home? Oh, people were ready for this. People jumped right on that poll. Now, the thing y'all are missing, because I'm not at my house, I was going to have my cute little dog join us for this poll, not to skew the results in any way, but because he's kind of cute and I wanted to show him on video with his little black face that completely disappears in our background screen. It's really very funny looking on Zoom. All right, looks like almost everyone has voted. I will share the results. The dog won. I am surprised. I was for sure it was going to be a cat that would win that. 4 people decided that Netflix was their pet. That's what I would have voted had I voted. All right. I did not expect that. Very interesting. I guess the typical librarians or cat people's thing is a myth, unless you're Baker and Taylor. Yes, that's right. We are defying the stereotypes. All right. So we always do kind of a quick update on our strategic plan, which is, I guess it's really about a year old now at this point. Doesn't seem like a year, but it is. Basically every piece of software and hardware that is in active use in RSA has been updated in the last probably 4 months. The only thing we didn't really get done was updating the firewall, which still is sitting on James's desk because we can't actually get into where we need to go to install it. Help desk is live and operational. We've got new forms software. We figured that piece out. We've got a good template. We've got that up and running. It's working very well. As you noticed, Erica was talking about cataloging request forms being reworked. This is the software we'll use for that. It will continue to allow you to upload all your pictures like you need to. We'll be working on the report request to make that form a lot easier and many other forms. We have redone basically every notice in the system. Member services touched all of those things to update them, to make them work much better in the future. Fix all the item type issues that were out there on those. And just the last week or so, we have gone through and updated the rotator carousels on the front of your RSA CAT pages for public libraries. And whoever pointed this out, I think it was Quincy maybe pointed this out. Somebody pointed it out to me. I need to close that case, by the way. Was that the New York Times YA list seemed to be a little bit out of date. Well, as it turns out, it was about a year out of date, as was one other list that we were showing in that rotator. And that's because the New York Times ended those lists and redid them in a different way. So we have removed those old New York Times lists and added a YA and a juvenile New York Times list on there. So Jennifer Williams, thank you. Those you'll get a closed case email one of these days as I go through and close that case. Thanks to Jennifer for pointing that out. I'm sure that was something that I should have known about. It probably was on a listserv somewhere. And I probably looked real close at the listserv and then went and looked at our site and said, that seems up to date. Well, yeah, it would have seemed up to date right when they announced that they were closing the list because, well, it would have been just recently updated, but it had not been for a while. So that was a lot of work, by the way, because Tony probably has carpal tunnel syndrome already from doing that, because it's basically manually opening every RSA CAT profile and making sure that those are removed and the new ones were added. And there are 250-ish RSA CAT profiles in total. So yeah, that was a lot of work. Membership engagement. Again, we are testing different days for meetings and times, not just the board meeting, not just users group, but also for our committees. You'll notice that the last committees we had were not at the normal times and on the normal Thursday. We'll continue to move things around. We have our training sessions through, I believe, April or May that we had announced. We're doing them on different days of the week. We're doing one in the morning, and then the next one will be in the afternoon. The idea being that as many people as we can, some people are available in the morning, some people are not, so we wanted to work around that. We're tightening up our online training sessions to focus on what matters. Most of our online training is kind of a direct takeoff of what we were doing in person. You all know that you lose some serendipity and some ability to talk to each other and learn good, fun stuff when we're on a Zoom. Chat notwithstanding, it's much harder to be engaged on Zoom. And so we're basically going through all of our training and taking out anything that is not laser focused on what you actually need to know. And we'll leave all the serendipitous discovery for when we can be back in person and you all can talk to each other and learn lots of fun stuff doing that. So hopefully you'll start seeing those training sessions tighten up. You'll also, after your training sessions, will be getting a survey. So you can, it's a quick 10-question survey. I say quick 10 questions. It shouldn't take you more than about 5 minutes to do it at the most, and that's it if you write a lot to us in the free text fields. But I'll want you to please fill out those surveys after every one of our trainings. Most of those survey responses will come to me. That's just so that we can keep an eye on what we're doing and make sure that the training we're providing is what you need. And also, if you have some good ideas for things we're not training on, there will be a box on there for you to point those things out to us. So as I mentioned before, we have a new form site and we can have lots of new free forms now, and you can bet we're going to use that. So that's part of coming out of that. One of the things that was on our membership engagement pillar for our strategic plan was increased online participation. Little did we know in November of 2019 that we would get really good at online participation in these meetings. So that we have completely fulfilled that particular goal on our member engagement and continue to do so. Provide leadership opportunities was something that was in our member engagement pillar. As again, there are 5 open positions for elections in May. If you are a supervisor or manager or library director, take a look at that list. That's a great way to get leadership opportunities in RSA. Okay, organizational effectiveness. That is our second main pillar of our strategic plan. The membership services levels steering committee was one of the big things on there. That's up and running. Hopefully we'll finish the work of that committee in November of 2021. That's what we're hoping anyway. You should all expect some surveys and requests for ideas and feedback. Things like, what is the very minimum level of RSA services that you could get by with on your library? What is absolutely essential, that kind of thing, to what would be nice to have, to what are your thoughts on maybe how we should set up membership levels? So keep your eye open for that. Those will probably be coming out in March. I would expect some surveys on that. We want to help people understand their footprint in RSA. That was something that was part of this organizational effectiveness, right? So again, I broke out all the grant figures so that I can share that information with you as we move forward. We've got the case tracking down to the library, down to the staff member if need be now. So we can help you with that. We'll be able to, as we move forward, now that we can track individuals who have attended training in the help desk as well, we can start filling some of that out for you. So we're also going to come up with kind of a statistical pie, if you will, kind of an overall system usage type of score for a library, just to kind of give you an idea of where you stand percentile wise, maybe in circulation or number of users or number of titles or holds filled or things like that. It's not that we're going to use these things to say, oh, well, you have X% of our users, so you owe Y% of the money. That's not what we're about. We just want to help libraries get a better understanding of how they fit into RSA, and that's part of our strat plan. And then finally, the sad news of our 3 positions will be defunded under operating efficiency. We're continuing to work on online video training. I think there's a question about that later on. We're spinning up the site visits again. A couple in person, but that's basically for new libraries. But expect more video library visits as we move forward. I think everything else we've talked about here, except for the staff independence dates, we did get finally from Rails, we got the actual dates in which we have to have the RSA staff either employed by RSA or by someone other than Rails. And that has to happen between, well, it could happen earlier, but Rails's guidance is between the 1st of July 2024 and the 1st of July 2026. So that's kind of our time frame for shooting towards that. You may see an email asking if there are any member libraries in RSA who could legitimately take on the RSA staff. We are talking with PrairieCat and potentially other LSAPs, but PrairieCat's the one that makes sense about some kind of staffing partnership. Either option is way better than RSA spending the time to come up with all of those benefits and retirement plans and all of that for 12 people. Those of you in small libraries that have had to deal with trying to get a new benefit plan, you know what I'm talking about there. And RSA is not Limerick or IMRF eligible as a not-for-profit. So that would make things even harder for us to do it all by ourselves. Any questions? Where would you look for a pie chart of the breakdown of RSA members? On the RSA website, over on the navigation bar on the left, there's a page called About RSA. And on that, it doesn't have a pie chart necessarily, but it does have a count of the number of members at each of each type of library and at each membership level. There are 70, I want to say 77 or no, I'm sorry, 97 or 98. No, that's wrong. 77 or 78 full online libraries and 60 something basic online libraries. That's off the top of my head. That's within the ballpark. Oh, good question. Is there anything an RSA member users can do to ease the transition to RSA independence from Rails? So maybe. Like I said, we're basically what we'll start off looking for is there a legitimate partner who RSA can either do a staffing agreement with or come up with a conversation of some type, and then pursue that and see how that works and how that goes. That's going to take way less staff time to do, and probably in the long run is a better option anyway, other than RSA going, okay, we've got 12 staff members, let's go find a number of health care plans and a dental plan and a vision plan and try and set up 401ks and all the different kinds of retirement plans that we would need to do, and then get our own HR people and our own not finance people, but our own payroll people and all of that. I mean, I don't have enough hours in the day to do that. We would have to hire part-time people to help. That is not my particular area of expertise. So that's why I'm saying we would much rather partner either with a member library or with another organization that already has their staff independently hired, preferably one who has IMRF as their retirement fund, so that when RSA staff are no longer Rails staff members, we can comfortably move in and no one loses their retirement. Yes, very good comments. Alyssa's calling it the divorce, the RSA independence. The RSA is divorcing Rails. I was liking consortial dating better with me talking to the other consortia. So I'm going with consortial dating. So we will be doing the consortial dating here in the near term future. And I had started that a year ago before all of this had kicked off with the COVID, and then it got stopped in its tracks. And I'll continue doing that here in the future. Oh, I need to, sorry, that's the wrong poll. Poll number 5 is the what type of Zoom user are you? This kind of goes along with one of the previous polls. I did take off the final option, which was the one who watched Friends. For those of you who are Friends fans, all of these titles are written in the Friends episode title tradition. Oh, just about everyone has voted. And of course, our winner is the one without the camera on. If you click through the list of people on screen, that's not all that surprising. Those of you who do have your cameras on, thank you. I enjoy, that's why I'm looking down a lot because all of your faces are below her, and it's easier for me to do a presentation if I can see actual human beings and to tell if you're falling asleep or not. So, all right. I think we are at the end of me talking, and at the beginning of Laura talking and the much more fun member discussion topics. So Laura, back to you.
Well, thank you so much, Kendall. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call for a 5-minute break. I think we have all deserved it. And just to be extra generous, I'll even give you 7 minutes. So if everyone could take a 5 or 7 minute break, stand up from your computer, do a stretch of your arms and do a stretch of your back. It'll make everyone feel better. And get a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and meet us back here in 7 minutes. Sounds good.
I'm going to pause the recording and we'll be right back.
Thanks so much, Kendall.
Resume recording. Now we're back to you.
Thank you so much, Kendall. Okay, everyone. So now comes for the discussion time. And as we all learned in first grade, if you don't volunteer and add to the discussion, you might be called upon. So just putting that out there. So the first topic for discussion is the topic for discussion that we've all been discussing for 6 or more months now. The per capita grant application and the fact that the Serving Our Public Force Standards for Illinois Public Libraries is front and center on the per capita grant application. So let's talk about this. How is this affecting or even changing your library? If you want to talk about how it's frustrating you, if you feel like you're being forced to make changes that you wouldn't normally make, please speak up. If you are still worried about how to make some changes that you think should be made based on what you've been reading in the book, please speak up. Do we have anyone volunteering to share their experiences?
I'd like to say that it's been nice being sort of forced to review everything, having a sort of reason or excuse to go over this stuff and get it up to date, because some of it here wasn't.
Thank you very much, Jenny. I've heard similar comments from other libraries. Even though it can be very frustrating, this is actually here to help us.
Well, I had to look up what the word ensuing means, particularly. I think that was an interesting choice of word they used in the application. One of the things that I have to be very careful of is I want to keep track of everything I say when I write it. I'm about halfway through it. If I say that we're going to do it in the ensuing year, I better have that on a list so I'll remember to do it.
That's a really good point, Barbara. And thank you for bringing that up. It is very easy to type in, oh yes, that is a good idea. That suggestion, that topic. Yes, that's very good. I will definitely implement that in the ensuing year. Please make a separate to-do list or whatever works with you. However you organize yourself, please don't forget that you have said, yes, I will do that step. I will implement that suggestion, because the odds are high that this time next year, the per capita grant will ask some question in terms of, so what did you do in the last 12 months? That you said that you would do. What did you do? And you want to be able to answer that honestly and effectively. I see a comment here in the chat from Stephanie that there are some aspects that are difficult with the small library, especially the reference services. Oh goodness, I agree with you, Stephanie. I really do. Some of those suggestions, benchmarks, whatever we want to call them. Remember, they are not absolute requirements. They're simply suggestions or goals. Yes, they're difficult because so many of us small libraries, we don't have a reference department. We don't have a reference desk for some of us small libraries. We just have one desk, a service desk, a circulation desk. And so do not feel bad if your answer to some of those subjects are, we can't do anything about this. So don't feel bad, because in a way you're still answering the question or topic, what are you going to do about this? And the answer is we can't. We don't have the manpower. We don't have the space for a reference desk. Whatever the answer is, that can be your answer. And let's see here, some other comments. Megan shares that she is looking through the sections and creating lists of things to improve. That's great. Courtney has a really good point that this is difficult to get through while we are still attempting to navigate this stinking pandemic. Oh goodness, Courtney, that's a true statement. And Lexi makes a really good point. Thank you for sharing, Lexi, that a handful of these benchmarks, her library decided that they were not feasible for her size library. And they took what they could, they took some of the suggestions and decided, yes, those are good suggestions for their size public library. And this is, I believe this is the main goal of reading through the book, Serving Our Public, for us public libraries to take the time to review everything and make the decision, do I need to implement anything, or is this actually working pretty well for us? Any other comments? Again, feel free to unmute yourself if that's easier than typing something into the chat.
Plus, we like hearing your voice.
Indeed. Kathy brings up a good point. The guidelines help you with discussing what the library needs, and that's similar to what Jenny said earlier. Having this document published by the Illinois Library Association can be incredibly helpful for you public library directors out there who have been trying to convince your boards that such and such a topic needed to be addressed, needed to be funded, or something like this. This is a wonderful document for you in order to emphasize what you clearly have been suggesting and pushing for a while.
And then I think that for many of us, it would help if on, when does this due? March 15th? On April 1st, they would post what the requirements for next year are going to be.
Yes.
So that we don't spend all year thinking about it, you know, and we ask different people at the state library and we get different answers. I think it would be more transparent on their part and help all of us if they would tell us right away what next year's per capita grant questions are going to be so that we can be ready to answer them.
Barb, they've said that going forward every year you have to review the entire standards book. That's the new, there's not going to be questions as before. Every year you just review the standards and share how you're making progress towards meeting the standards. So it's going to be the same now it's not going to be the way it was.
But doesn't that mean that at a point relatively soon, we will probably all run out of things to do? I mean, if we updating the standards every year, like, okay, did it, and like maybe I don't have time to get to all of them this year, but by next year I will. So then 2 years from now, what?
Yeah. Good point, Lexi.
Thank you for sharing what a lot of us were thinking, Lexi. That is something we will be seeing.
And to add to that, Laura, won't some of us get a little lax once we say, yeah, we're working on it? Like, you know.
Possibly, but, you know, I didn't make that decision. So that's also a very good possibility, Jenny, that some public libraries across the state will just, from year to year, check off things and just say, yep, we did it. Yep, we got that done.
My staff for Christmas got me a stamp that is a picture of my face giving a thumbs up and within a word bubble that says approved. And I think that for future years, my per capita application will just be a piece of paper with that stamped on it, and I will mail it to the ISL. Done. Nailed it.
That's cute, actually, Lexi. That's a really nice gift that they gave you.
They are the absolute greatest.
Amy made a really good point in the comments, which was, and she was echoing something that someone earlier mentioned. The policies should be reviewed and updated every year, reviewed at least, and so that's helpful. What I'm saying is that another person put in the chat that by reviewing the book, Serving Our Public 4.0, that has kind of forced the board to review policies, update policies. And my goodness, even if the policy is more or less standard one, like your donation policy, and a lot of us haven't looked at our donation policy in a long time because it's donations, that's what it says. You know what could help? Having a sentence or two on there about, if we are in the midst of a pandemic, we reserve the right to refuse any donations or some such like that, if your policy doesn't already have that phrase. So again, just reviewing the policies. Okay, so if anyone has any further questions or concerns about this, you're welcome to put them in the chat. You're welcome to contact me individually or an RSA staff member individually if it's about that or statistics. But let's move on to our next discussion topic. So user profiles for the Cards for Kids and Veterans Cards. And I'm going to turn this over to Anna for a bit more information about user profiles. Anna, can I put you on the spot?
Okay. I mean, basically, we kind of started having this conversation in the circulation committee well, I mean, I guess actually 2 meetings ago, but we also talked about it more at the last circulation committee meeting. Just about, you know, now that we have the kind of Cards for Kids and Veterans Cards mandate, or whatever you want to, call it, that, we as RSA should probably issue some sort of guidance about what user profiles should you be using for these. And I think where we've come down is basically the profile is basically, which one is it? The non-resident, or like the non-res are recip. Is that right? Or is it basically the taxpayer card, but without a fee? Anyway, it's basically one of our existing profiles, but it's an exemption from the fee requirement, and so what we are thinking we'll probably do is basically kind of copy over sort of the criteria for that profile, eliminate the annual fee. That's the one where when you create the card or renew it annually, it automatically charges the $999 fee, and then you're supposed to adjust that to be whatever your library's actual annual fee is. In this case, it would just not have the fee. And so we're thinking we'll create like an adult version of whatever we end up naming this profile and a juvenile version of whatever we end up naming this profile. So one you could use for the sort of exempt non-res, card for both adults and juveniles. So the adult will probably end up being the, veterans, and the juvenile will end up being the, cards for kids profiles, basically. We're also talking about, since at the beginning of at the beginning of the pandemic, we had a lot of questions about setting up online virtual only e-resource cards. And at that time, we had suggested CompUse as a profile. Between the ongoing pandemic and this kind of new mandate that you can offer e-resource only things, we think we need to do a little bit more testing to ensure that whatever we set up will work with all of the various e-resource vendors and such. But we'll probably do the same thing where we'll have like a online only juve and online only adult profile, and just kind of for the same reason, because we just think that need is going to continue, and that we won't maybe going forward once libraries are back with in-building service, we won't want to continue to conflate that with CompUse cards, since libraries will probably return to using those profiles for computer users in the building. And this way, if you do need to track specifically how many cards you're kind of issuing under these programs, they will be a separate user profile so that we can, kind of separate them out if need be. Corey, to answer your question, for now, I would say if you want to go ahead and use the non-res A and non-res J, just remember to take off the $999 fee. If you do set one up, though, I would recommend putting a user note in that says like cards for kids or cards for veterans or whatever it is. That way we can identify it, because that may be something where we do want to eventually move that profile to the new profiles that we get set up. Just because I'm just imagining patrons not being real happy if you don't know that it's one of those, go to renew it, and then suddenly charge them a fee they're supposed to be exempt from. So, kind of more to come as far as like officially, this is the profile name and this is the one you're supposed to use, and we'll update our, user, what is that? The user card policy that outlines, which profiles to use for which types of cards. We'll get that updated with that new information. Like I said, with the virtual only thing, I think we're probably going to need to do a little bit more testing to make sure that it works for everything. For now, I would say go ahead and continue to use CompUse for those. Dates will, the dates should make it pretty easy for us to identify which ones were, pandemic related e-resource only things. And since they're basically the same permissions, it's probably not going to be a crisis if we accidentally move one patron to one or the other. But I don't know, did I miss anything about that, Kendall? Does that kind of sum up where we are with that?
I think that's where we are. I just did a little math in my head, and cards, the number 4 kids, and cards, the number 4 vets, are both 10 digits.
Ooh, nice.
Which means they would be very descriptive user profile names for those two new profiles. So
cool. Cards for kids, cards for vets.
And also that makes them, it would be real hard to mistake those for anything else if we set them up like that. So
well, I'll put that in my notes so that we can remember your brilliant idea when we come to actually wanting to set them up.
Yeah, I won't.
Yeah, that's why I'm writing it down.
I think the biggest thing for everybody to remember is putting that note on the account so that when these things are set up, we can transfer everybody over so
Right.
they're on the right user profile accounts. I think that's going to be the thing that we want to be able to do moving forward for those of you who've already set some of these up.
Right. Exactly. And so if you have a list of those, keep that list going until, you know, until we have official updated cheat sheets and policy and stuff on that. But just make sure you put something indicative and searchable in the notes field.
Does anyone have any, let me start that over again. If anyone has any more general concerns about these two programs, the Cards for Kids and the Cards for Veterans, and the laws, how the laws apply to you as a public library, how you as a public library might now be working with your local school district closer than you've been working with in the past. I do encourage you to you know, do some research, but actually reach out to Rails. Rails has a bit more information that on these two topics, because Rails works more closely with the state library and of course the Illinois Library Association. This might come off as weird, and I do not mean this to be insulting, but Rails staff works a bit more closely with, you know, the state library than RSA staff does, because RSA staff have different duties. Like Kendall said earlier, RSA is not Rails, Rails is not RSA. They work together, but they have different goals. They have different job descriptions. So once again, I welcome any questions or comments at this time on this topic, but if anyone has any nitty gritty questions like, oh my gosh, why was this law enacted or anything like that, just to let you know, we can only give you so much information.
So this is Elizabeth and Henry. This is sort of a question, sort of a comment, sort of a, I don't know. So with the Cards for Kids, because it is dependent on free reduced lunches, which can vary year by year. When my father was in grad school, I got free lunches. When we first moved to Aberdeen, I got reduced. The next year I didn't. Is there a way that Cards for Kids could be not a 1-year card, but a through like the beginning of the next school year card? So that it didn't matter if they picked it up in January or in September, it would be good through August 31st, and then they should have their next letter if they moved.
Yeah, so we can absolutely do that. We actually do that with the cards, user profiles that we set up for public and school intergovernmental agreements. All of those cards expire, I think, on the 15th of August. For the same reason, we want the kids in those intergovernmental agreements to have access to the library through the summer. But when school starts, then they all sign new agreements. And so all the cards expire on the same day, and they all have to all be renewed after their agreements are reset. So that's probably a good thing. Anna, take a note. That's something the committee should talk about. But yeah, that's absolutely something we can set up, is set them up, and then, you know, no matter when you would create the card, the default end of the card, unless you go in and manually change it, could be, you know, the 15th of August, like the other ones that we have set up that need to be rechecked every year.
And, you know, the disabled vet one, I assume, does not change.
Yeah, no, pretty much once you're a disabled vet, you're always a
Right.
disabled vet. Although I will tell you that I got less disabled somehow or another over the years.
Okay.
Slightly less. I got 10% less disabled, even though I'm probably 30% more disabled than I was. I'm 10% less disabled than what I was when I retired. So it does change a little bit, but yeah, for vets, it's a lot easier. It's pretty easy to go online and get a letter that says you're a disabled vet with your percentage and all that. It doesn't take much work to get that done. You just have to go online and log in on a website and it'll run it for you. So those aren't all that hard to get.
Hey Kendall, this is Gina. You may want to check with the state library on that. For some reason in my mind, I feel like there was it's tied to the school year type thing, like the actual school year versus just a year. I would never bet my children on it. Well, maybe I would because then I might lose, but depends on their behavior that day. But for some reason I have that there was actually written in that it had to do with the school years.
So like the cards would expire
like they always
at the end of May or something?
Like August 30th, because you can get them, like schools start about August and you could re-up it at the beginning of the school year and it was good through the following summer, but I don't know. I'm not 100% on that.
Yeah. Yeah, Anna's taking notes, so she'll have written it down.
Cool. Any other questions or comments on the cards for kids or the veterans cards, disabled veterans cards? We appreciate the sharing that people have done. This helps us all understand our own communities and future policies and everything better. So, okay, next topic. What role can the users group play to increase RSA intra-library mentoring and cross-training? Is there a way RSA can help that is not staff intensive? So
yes.
We've all heard, okay. Did you want to say a couple words?
Well, I was going to say the first question on there was one that was submitted on my nice submission form. The second question on there was Kendall's submission to that submission, because I'm sure we could come up with some wonderful program, but if it's going to take 20 hours a week of support, there's no way we can do it. So
yeah, the first thing I want to say is that I encourage everyone to actually think about this. This is a question that is on your agenda, the wonderful handy dandy agenda that I hope people are looking at and taking notes on. Think about this, and if you have ideas, thoughts, even questions that come up and roll around in your brain later on in the week or next Monday, then feel free to email me, feel free to email Kendall, and we can just keep this like conversation going. But we all heard earlier in the meeting that RSA staff had to defund 2 positions, Kendall, was it?
3 positions.
3 positions. Thank you, Kendall. They had to defund 3 positions. And we all know that we have all been stretched thin, sometimes due to the pandemic and the new policies and procedures that are all in place. And could be actually a situation not even to do with the pandemic, but so many of us could definitely agree that we are stretched thin. That being said, we as RSA users and RSA members, this is an opportunity to just help each other out and pull together. And it's just not as simple as calling someone up and asking a question. Do you have this policy? I'd like to borrow it. Let's actually think a little bit bigger, and let's start talking about a possibility of, as was mentioned, some type of cross-training or intra-library mentoring. An idea that I've had for years is a way for people to just help each other out, especially when it comes to being short-staffed. Is there a way that we can almost share staff members or something like that? So anyway, this is a much bigger question, but I'd really like to hear other people's thoughts on this. I don't need to hear myself talking all the time. Barbara has a great idea that this could start with a list of people who are willing to answer questions and or be of help to someone who is needing it. That's a very good idea.
If there was a possibility, and I know we've tried some of these things in the past, and I don't remember where they are, but some sort of kind of shared drive space, whatever, you know, because I make brochures and I make bookmarks, and I would be willing to share them. Now I do them in a freeware desktop publishing that has a bit of a learning curve, but I'm willing to put out that file and at least talk people through some of that.
Well, that's wonderful. Yeah, that's a great offer, Elizabeth, to share some simple graphic design, some desktop publishing files, ideas, things like that. That's a great offer. I'm sure there are a whole handful of us that say, yeah, we don't even have time to do that. So that could be of great help. Other ideas for mentoring, if you just want to be honest and say, I would appreciate a mentor, or I am willing to possibly mentor someone else. You know, again, if you don't want to put it in the chat, if you want to have a more in-depth conversation, I hope everyone has my information. They've got Kendall's or Anna's information. And Stephanie reminds us that, yes, a lot of people are willing to share policy examples. That is a wonderful bit of assistance that so many of us are grateful for, because as we were just talking about, sometimes it's time to review and update our policies. And why reinvent the wheel? Just take a look at someone else's policy and see if it can be applied to your library with some minor changes.
So, you know, Rails does maintain a policy database of sorts on their website, as well as job descriptions that anyone can upload, and you can also then download sample policies.
Thank you very much, Alyssa. That is absolutely right. And I encourage everyone to go to the Rails website and look into that.
And I guess, I mean, the other thing I would just encourage people to do, if they haven't already, is to get connected. I know there's lots of regional groups there that meet. You know, there's groups for Readers Advisory in the Peoria area. There's, you know, obviously the meetings that RSA has are a great way to meet people and connect. There are some listservs on the Rails site as well, if you're not involved, as Kathy just mentioned also in the chat.
Yeah, we all know that as RSA users, we're very spread out, and some of us are in pretty rural areas. That being said, as Kendall mentioned earlier, thanks COVID-19, it's made putting together virtual meetings a little bit easier, and or just we're used to it. Perhaps it's not easier, but you can't argue that we are getting used to it. If you are a public library director and you feel that there is not a group in your area and you'd like to start one, then contact someone from RSA and see what does that take to start something, to start a group like that. So again, please take this topic and keep thinking about it for the next week even. And as ideas come to you, as even more questions come to you, please reach out and share your ideas and your suggestions and your questions. So based on that, we will go on to the next topic. Okay, this is a big one. So let's talk about the increasing minimum wage, specifically how many libraries, even if you're not a public library, we still want to hear from you. How many libraries will no longer be hiring shelvers, pages, or high school students specifically due to the increasing minimum wage? And therefore, how are you going to be doing your shelving? And let's just talk about that. What do you do with your high school kids that we all know in years past, we could give them a lot of the grunt work, a lot of the busy work. And for so many of us, we actually started at our local public library as a high school kid. That's awesome. So yeah, Elizabeth from Henry shares with us that she's never had them. Okay. And Barbara shares that her tiny staff do it all themselves. Cool. Glad that that works out for your staff. If anyone truly, if any public library truly has made the decision not to hire any more high school students, please feel free to speak up, unmute yourself.
This is Michelle, and we are the same as Elizabeth. We've never had high school students or pages. Everybody who works at the library just shelves.
Yeah.
It's just part of your job. You check people out, you check things in, you go put it on the shelf.
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah. And Jamie shares that she's same as Michelle. Cool. Kathy in the chat shared that her library, I believe it's the Prairie Skies Public Library District, takes advantage of the programs where another organization actually pays the student to work in the library. Those are programs that are available a lot of times through your local community college. And that could be, depending on your high school and depending on what they already have in place, it could be an agreement actually through your high school. I have taken advantage of both of those programs at the Dunlap Public Library for a short time last summer and fall before we did have to close down because of the pandemic. We had a high school student who was a special needs high school student, and the school's goal was to have the student get some real work-life experience. And so this student could do very simple tasks, such as dusting and shelving and cleaning and things like that. And he was not on the library's payroll. That could be an option between you and your local high school. I have also taken advantage of the school, I guess it's the student is just a student worker program with a local community college. And the student was paid, I believe the student was paid minimum wage. And again, this is a college student, and they could work at the library. So, and Kathy reminds us that a lot of high school students have to do a lot of service hours, either for National Honor Society, some other society. I understand that a number of churches have requirements for service hours. So there's quite a variety of opportunities for pretty much getting non-paid help. Barbara shares with us that she is negotiating with the Regional Office of Education for GED students to get job experience. That's a wonderful idea. I didn't know about that. I wanted to also throw out there that don't forget that it is legal to pay a under 18-year-old a different wage. Of course, the under 18-year-old minimum wage than the standard minimum wage. That is legal. You want to do it carefully. You want to make sure that that's all, it's on paper, it's all good. that is something that we have done at my library, if anyone wants to talk about that. So we've got some great suggestions in the chat. I encourage everyone to just go through the chat and write down some suggestions, reach out to those folks from those libraries and connect with them if you want to have even additional information. But anyone else want to say anything about this before we move on?
Regarding the sub minimum wage, you can start out that way, but then eventually they'll turn 18 and you'll have to pay them.
Well, yes, but
so it's really hard to budget when you do it that way.
I do agree with you, Alyssa, but that you only have to, it depends on what your job description is. My job description is the title of the position is called high school page. In the job description, it lists that the person has to be enrolled at a high school. And so that person might turn 18, and that is true. And I completely agree with you. It is difficult to budget for that. But there will come a time when that person's employment will end. It will end because they are no longer enrolled in high school. And then we will part ways and I will hire another high school student. And, you know, so that is a way of looking at it as well. But yeah, it's difficult to budget when you know you're going to have to give them a large raise. Okay, so next topic, moving right along. So has anyone heard of any new or pending legislation? I have to admit I haven't, but I am not familiar with every single, decision or listserv or anything.
And the person who asked that question basically explained it as, I can't keep up with everything. Maybe someone else has heard something that we should know about. And if so, how are they addressing it? So I think pretty much your response was what their input was when asking this question.
Please do speak up if anyone has heard of anything.
I would just recommend that you sign up for the Municipal Minute by Julie Tappendorf from Ansel Glink. That's a great way to stay up to date on pending legislation. They serve libraries, they're up in the suburbs, but sometimes you get a newsletter that doesn't apply to you and you just hit the delete button, but they do explain the legislation. And then if you're not signed up for ILA newsletters, which even if you're not a member, you can get their newsletter, they will include a legislative briefing in that as well. So those are just some quick resources to try to stay current with what's being passed and what might be coming down the pipe.
Thank you very much, Alyssa. And in the chat, Amy has reminded us that ISBE affects teachers in schools, and any legislation for any of our school librarians out there on the call today. So thank you, Amy, for that reminder. And Mary at Chillicothe reminds us that the workplace report is a good resource too. So thank you. And we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so this is about the help desk. Good question. Thank you so much, people who are submitting these questions. And Kendall will answer this one.
Yeah, I sort of answered it before when we were talking about the new help desk, mostly because I forgot that this was a question. So typically, like I said, we hope to respond back to you within 24 hours for most non-cataloging request things. We hope to have the case completed within 24 to 48 hours. I will warn all of you that the November through now timeframe has been horrible on RSA staff. We typically have 2 or 3 people out a day. It's just been bonkers. with the number of people who have been out sick. So again, 24 to 48 is typically what we try and do. Those of you who have asked me a question and opened a case in that I'm the owner of, if it wasn't an easy case, I probably did not make that turnaround time. But again, you can get back to me if you have questions. You can respond back on the case and ask for an update. You know, if it's a case that's in member services, you know, you could also ping Anna or Erica for cataloging things, or James for reports and system stuff. But typically, just if you hit me up and say, hey, I've got a concern that this case has not been dealt with in a timely manner, then I'll help you out with that. So.
Yay, wonderful. Thank you so much for that that answer, Kendall. And oh, Alyssa, thank you for putting that link in the chat regarding the cards for kids and the veterans updates and such. Thank you for putting that in the chat.
And previously in the chat, there was another really good link too that I had opened up.
Yeah.
That was the Citizen Advocacy Center Guide for Cards for Kids Act. So there are two good things in the chat.
Okay, next topic.
Well, if I could click in the right place, we would do that. There we go.
Okay, so yes, lost items. This is definitely something that is causing a lot of frustration. And so Anna, do you mind me turning this over to you and you really quickly walking through the steps that should be taken with lost items and such and payment?
Yeah, I mean, this arose kind of out of a specific situation, but it's also the sort of thing that probably comes up a lot of times. But basically, the way it is in theory supposed to work is, you know, you get a hold in from another library, one of your patrons checks it out, the item goes lost, the patron never returns it. In theory, that bill should remain on the patron's account until ideally they pay it or return the item. Of course, you know, sometimes the patron then moves out of the state and they're never going to pay the bill. The way the policy is kind of phrased is basically sort of the, if that happens, eventually the library that owns the item just kind of has to accept that the item is gone and they're probably not going to get reimbursed for it. Our RSA policy does not permit for you to then like bill the checkout library for your lost item or something like that. But the other side of this policy is that the checkout library is not supposed to just remove this fine or lost item bill from the patron's account without consulting with the owning library and saying like, hey, you know, I found, you know, this card has been expired for 8 years. This patron is gone and never coming back. I need to remove this, you know, fine so I can clear up my old patron records or whatever. You know, that library is not supposed to unilaterally either forgive or remove that fine. Or, you know, and if that library does mark the fine as paid, the assumption is then that payment is going to be en route to the owning library, either as a check, you know, mailed by that library, not put in delivery according to the terms of the policy, or, you know, because they paid it online and it will be getting back to the owning library through the, you know, twice a year pro-pay payments. Every now and then you do have that situation though, where maybe an item is, you know, marked as paid erroneously, like maybe a patron was, maybe you were cleaning up your own records and thought you were only removing, you know, lost bills on your own library's materials or something, and accidentally, you know, swiped another patron, or something really weird happened and, you know, maybe you typed in the wrong patron ID and paid off the wrong patron's payments, you know, who knows, you know, clicked on the current user instead of entering the right user or something like that. So this is kind of the situation that's come, you know, up, you know, the specific situation that kind of generated this question was one where we just kind of, on the RSA level, were not able to really figure out exactly what happened. Like we could see what library the payment had supposedly happened at, but we weren't able to get any more, that it didn't shed a ton of light on what might have actually happened. You know, kind of no one had a record of actually having received this payment. And so it kind of came to the question of like, well, should someone rebill the patron? I would say the only library that I'd be comfortable with rebilling the patron would be the checkout library that should have initially created the bill. You know, like if they have been in touch with the patron goes like, oh, I didn't actually pay that, and then that library chooses to rebill them, then I would be okay with that. But like, I'm not comfortable with the owning library going in and reapplying a bill. You know, it's just got way too much potential to create a really bad experience for both multiple other libraries and patrons and all of that. So I kind of think, I mean, where I kind of land is like, this may be a situation where, you know, the very unsatisfactory response of, I'm sorry, you probably just have to accept that this item is gone and you're not getting reimbursed, you know, kind of sort of thing. But anyway, that's enough of me rambling about it, though. I don't know if this specific situation happens often enough that it needs to be a specific line in a policy, because it is, fortunately, at least based on how often I hear about it, relatively rare. But I am taking notes for things I'm supposed to start writing policies on. So if that is a push from the users group of like, please outline this specific situation, you know.
We probably should, just because
Yeah.
that was one of those things that was a long-standing,
Yeah.
everybody knows it, unwritten rule in RSA, and all the
Right.
people who knew all the old unwritten rules have retired.
Well, and we did
And
go
now they're
in,
just unwritten.
right. Well, and we did go in and add the unwritten rule of like, hey, please don't just unilaterally wipe off the fine for your patron without consulting with the owning library. But I think maybe the kind of, if you just can never figure out what happened thing, you know, is
I
I
feel
guess.
like this is
Yeah.
written down somewhere. Maybe it's just in what you referenced, or maybe Kendall, I'm old enough or have
To
been here
remember the
long enough
unwritten.
that I know the unwritten rule about this, but I don't feel like this. I don't know. I feel like this is a tiny enough issue that we don't need a policy about it.
Well,
And
I
it
feel,
may be
well,
written in the lost items policy.
I think it
I think
is.
it's close to this, but maybe not exactly this in the lost item policy.
yeah, we don't have the part about the accidental removal, but I mean, to me, the relevant part of the policy is if the patron is gone and you're not going to get payment, just basically kind of the philosophy that at some point you just have to let it go. Sort of thing is sort of what it says. You know, yeah, and sometimes it's someone new accepted the payment, and if it's a generic circ account, you may never, you just may never be able to tell whether the patron really paid or not. And I kind of go benefit of the doubt goes to the patron, you know. But
and again, if anything paid online, those payments we can track because we have the money and we break them out based on CircDesk breakout rules. So all those lost items, I look up, I find out who owns the item. That's the library that gets reimbursed for the item. You'll get a listing that has not only the amount that was lost, but the actual item ID so that you can go in and remove it out of the system. So using the online payment, while it means that you have to wait to get your money, we do break everything out correctly there. So if you're ever looking at payments in the system and going, oh, there was a lost item of ours and we haven't gotten the money from the sending library, if you click on the little gadget, the underlined portion of the paid bill, and look at the payment type, if it says ProPay, that was paid online. ProPay, you know, dash PL or PO would be ProPay at Peoria, ProPay AP would be ProPay at Alpha Park, that kind of thing, right? So if it says ProPay, it was paid online, and you'll get that money.
so it kind of sounds like, I mean, just to interpret this conversation a little bit, like we're thinking maybe we do not need necessarily, I mean, we did recently revise what would be this policy, which would be the patron notification and billing policy. It sounds like maybe we don't need to necessarily rewrite the policy at this time because of it, but maybe I'll make a note that the next time that policy is up for review, that maybe we should add a statement kind of to the sort of the you know, if a patron never pays their fine, the owning library will absorb the loss, is the way it's phrased. Then maybe we'll just kind of say, or if, you know, if a payment is never I don't know, if a payment is never received by the, do I want to say that in the policy? Because then I don't want people to think that therefore it's okay not to reimburse the owning, you know, that if you take a payment, you know.
Perhaps the wording could still be, you know, worked out, but it's
right.
I would say, if I might be so bold as to say, I think it's worth making a note that when this policy does come up for review, this is a good discussion point.
Right,
and
to review the situation.
Yeah, the wording can be worked out in the future, but this is something that, again, enough people have commented on it to bring it to your attention. And once again, for everyone who's still listening and multitasking and all that fun stuff, if you're still out there, keep in mind that bringing stuff to the RSA staff's attention is very helpful, because that's the only way they know how situations occur. They are not by your side every day, working at the circulation desk or working in the back room looking at data. By telling them what is going on, that's how they know what's going on.
Right, yeah, because we also, I mean, as you've kind of implied, we don't necessarily know how often this really does happen, because we only find out about it when someone asks. And, you know, if a lot of the time you're kind of like, okay, someone screwed up somewhere, I'm not going to stress over the 10-year-old copy of, you know, a bestseller that was no longer, you know, I used to work at a large library, so I would just be like, okay, that's tweeting, it's gone, fine, you know. But you know, I know not everyone has that relationship to their collections. So, you know, and sometimes you know, we can shed some light on what happened and where a payment was made or whatever, or at least point you in the right direction to follow up with the correct, you know, the naughty library or whatever, or at least tell you sort of, you know, who has the best chance of knowing. But okay, I'll say, when this policy is next up for review, we'll review the situation and see if we can insert additional guidance for.
And or maybe that's a good example note to put on the policy, you know, for example, if blah, blah, blah. That way you don't have to spell it out in the policy. You can just list it as, this is the type of thing the policy covers. Here's an example of how it would be applied.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay.
Wonderful. Once again, it's great that the libraries are submitting these questions and concerns. This is how we review them. What's the next one?
Along the same lines.
Yeah, it's a related question. This is kind of the other reminder, is that if you are cleaning up your expired cards, you know, in the retention schedule for expired patron accounts, or however the policy is phrased, there are kind of things of like, if they owe under $25 of lost item fees, the card can be cleared at 4 years after expiration. If they owe more than this amount, you have to hang on to it for 8 years, blah, blah, blah. The thing I ask everyone to remember basically is that if you are doing one of these projects where you're cleaning up your expired cards, you know, review that policy to get the time frame and amount limits and stuff. But bear in mind that if these items in question do not belong to your library, like even though it's in the policy that these things can be cleared at this time frame, if they're not yours, we do ask that you still contact the item owning library and have them, you know, remove those fines and stuff like that, as opposed to just removing it and, you know, taking the card away, because then you kind of really lose your paper trail for what happened to that item and, you know, where it went and what happened, and stuff. And it's just, you know, it's a courtesy of kind of like a, you know, to not unilaterally make that decision of like, okay, this item is now gone, but you know, just because it's still kind of going to be in the cataloged in like a lost assumed thing, but there's not going to be a patron tied to it anymore, and it just gets weird and confusing. So just keep the owning library in that loop. And then if you are the owning library if the item has been gone for 4 years, it probably isn't coming back and you're probably not going to get reimbursed. So I don't know that it's a hill that I would recommend dying on to insist that that bill stay in the account and that, account stay in the system. The policy is that after, a certain amount of time, people do get to clear up those cards and to get them, off their library rolls, as it were. But if there is any discussion, this is a policy that has not been reviewed in quite a few years. So this is probably one that, my goal is to get all of our policies, kind of as you were discussing with the library standards 4.0, I'm kind of trying to get our policies a bit more current. We have certain ones that haven't been reviewed since 2013, I think, is our current oldest policy. So even if it's just a rubber stamp review, we're trying to, barring when we have, directives from users group or the board to look at specific policies, that we're just kind of trying to work through, kind of going back to our whatever our oldest policy is, and even if it's just a rubber stamp and putting it on nice letterhead, to get them up to date. So this may be something that will be reviewed in the nearer future than the other one, which we had just redone. So if you have thoughts about this, please share them. I have, like Kendall mentioned about users group ideas, I've got a survey for CERT committee ideas, discussion points. So if you have thoughts about a policy that you think we need to be reviewing, or an existing policy that may need tweaks, that form could be a way to submit those, or you can just email me.
Excellent. Okay, so talking about, we're going to keep Anna talking for a little bit. As was discussed before, online trainings have been very helpful during this time of COVID-19 and the pandemic. However, developing short online modules, 20 minutes or less, specifically for the frontline library staff, great idea. And the question that I believe the RSA staff have back to the users group is, okay, which modules? So please unmute yourself and put it into the chat. What would you like to see as extra training things for the for RSA staff to put together?
And I guess a follow-up question is, would you like to see wizard by wizard, or would you like to have a video like grouping things by function, like all the billing wizards, all the renewal, like everything renewals, or renew user as one wizard? Or, okay, Bobby says by function. We may do a combination of both, I'll say, we may just try to do wizard by wizard, but we will get it. We'll get some out faster if we can do some grouping.
Function makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
This is Elizabeth and Henry. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to agree with Corey, just a really brief video. This is how you check out. Mm-hmm. This is how you register a patron.
Right.
This is how you place, and just that one simple topic, short video that you can point people to when they need the refresher. I have paper things for my staff, but we don't do a whole lot of ILLs from outside of RSA. So every time one comes in, they're like, how do I do this?
So kind of the rarer functions are kind of the ones, the things you need like a couple of times a month.
Some of the rarer function, the brief on everybody is going to have to register a patron, check out a book, place a hold would be great. And then some of those things that you don't do like every day.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That are just a little odder.
Okay. All right. That helps.
Yeah, I think one of the things that our videos start getting long because we try and put context on everything and explain things and tell you why you don't do things. And it seemed pretty clear from the person who asked this question that it was more along the lines of, don't worry about that stuff. Just show us how to do something and be done with it.
Well, and I'm kind of like I had been at the beginning of the pandemic uploading every single training I did, but I'm kind of over it, just also because then if I mention something timely, it's a whole like 2 or 3 hour video that needs to be redone to correct one point. So I'm kind of going more toward the, and people who've been to my CERC trainings know I try to kind of group it sort of by function anyway, you know, so I'm just going to kind of, I'll start with that, and then I'll try to make sure that we get some videos about, you know, share Illinois and union lister holds, or creating a, you know, a brief record for an ILL and all that kind of stuff. So we'll try to hit the more esoteric things as well. I did, my staff, everyone's working on a video this week, so there should be a few more uploaded hopefully early next week, and we're just going to kind of keep chipping away at it. So, but yes, if you have specific suggestions, email me, use the form, email the help desk.
Okay,
I call it video request or something.
So Anna,
Mhm.
I'm just looking at the videos on the page. I haven't actually watched the video,
Mhm.
but the like place research holds, that's like
Mhm.
about 6 minutes long. That would be a great link. That 5 to 6 minutes long.
Yeah. Well, and things that are just a single wizard are gonna, because that's a complicated wizard, and so if I only went 6 minutes on that one, then that's probably about as long as a single wizard video would get. So okay, cool. Thank you.
Excellent feedback from everyone. Thank you very much. Okay, I think that's a
I'm
duplicate
pretty sure
slide.
we just did that.
I think that's a duplicate slide. Okay, one of my favorite times of the meeting. Shout outs to other libraries or any library staff members for great help, great suggestions, great encouragement. Let's start out. You can unmute, you can write something in the chat. Our numbers are dwindling. We have 45 people on our call, but come on, let's share this information. This has been a wonderful group of people who are constantly helping each other. I can tell from comments and from emails that I see. So, okay. Shout out from Corey to Jennifer at Alpha Park, an excellent tech services manager. Oh, she was an excellent tech services manager at Alpha Park, so I know she does a great job at PPL. Okay, yes, thank you, Corey. Yes, shout out to Jennifer. And shout out to Anna for everything that you do to put up for us. Thank you, Cheryl, wonderfully put. Thanks so much for Anna.
Y'all are great.
And Jamie, that is very kind to say. Every one of you is a rock star. Yes. Very, very good, Jamie. And Megan, if everyone didn't know, Megan is so brand new as a director. And thank you to others. Thank you to everyone who has answered her questions. I have no idea if he's still on the call, but shout out to Joel. Are you still on the call, Joel? Joel left. He always has very, very amusing comments and keeps everyone on their toes. Okay. Well, wonderful. These are great things to do. These are great things to say, and I encourage each of you to take some notes if you want to make a shout out to the next person, or during the next meeting, make a shout out. So and thank you, Cheryl, for saying this was a good meeting. We are getting down to the end of our topics, but we've still got a few more to go through. So next one. So as was mentioned before, Rails has different topics of support to all of our libraries in our service area. RSA does a number of specific things. Rails does specific things. now is the time to be honest, be open, and share with your fellow librarians. Do you have questions? Do you have comments about Rails? Even what do they do well? What would you say Rails could do to improve their support or services? And a more specific question in this topic, would anyone like a more formal meeting, like with Rails, to share these ideas, to you know, not the Rails updates, but like a really specific meeting just between RSA folks and Rails?
And or area libraries and Rails. And I say area libraries because that would basically include Bloomington and Parlin Ingersoll as well.
Thank you.
But yeah, so I've been here long enough to remember when Alliance we would need to go out and you know, have talks with people and try and, you know, rethink the way we were doing things. I know many years ago, RSA started doing meetings in various different member library buildings at various locations around RSA based on feedback like this, like, well, you're not out in our area, how we can't come and see you, can you come and see us, right? So there's always a little bit of tension with the libraries in the Chicago area with Rails who want much more like staff specific training from Rails versus libraries outside of the Chicago area who want much more support for things like grant writing or for, you know, networking groups so that people can work better with each other or whatever. And I know from time to time issues bubble up. And, you know, sometimes it's good to sit down and have a meeting with Rails and just remind them that there are things that Rails could do better. Same deal with RSA. RSA can always be better, and sometimes you need to remind us so that we take another look at ourselves. But I know Dee and Monica, the director and assistant director at Rails, have started reaching out to not just the RSA area networking groups, but the networking groups basically all through Rails to start setting up dates when they were going to be meeting with those networking groups. So you're going to have a chance there as well. But I was just wondering if there are enough hard feelings about services or lack of services, and we wanted to actually kind of help put together a group that would maybe come up with a more formal, an airing of the grievances, if you will, with Rails, then we could help support that.
If anyone does have any comments, whether good or bad, that that you don't actually want to unmute or you would rather share anonymously, keep in mind that you can type something into the chat and share it directly with Kendall or directly with me, and then we will have that information. You can also send an email after this meeting, and anyone at RSA or me, you know, will keep something in confidence if there's some subject or some concern that you have that you don't want to attach your name to.
And I'm always happy to pass along, and I have lately, if there are, especially if there's like a specific issue or a problem that or question that I can pass along. I have meetings with Rails every other week. And so it's always fun to drop a little bomb on them. I didn't say that out loud. It's always nice to be able to have something that, whether or not Rails can do anything about it, I think it's good that they know that that's an area that's a pain point. Because if you have enough areas of pain points, eventually those things will get addressed.
I would like to throw out there that, you know, COVID has
provided a whole lot of things via Zoom, including a lot of the Rails various groups, like the technical services group is now moved to a Zoom platform. And that allows us to be a part of those bigger groups and to share some of that with some of those other folks. And I believe that there is thought process that come the time when we can travel again, that those will all be disbanded and they'll go back to only in-person meetings. And I would strongly prefer if they would continue the Zoom platforms, because those of us who are downstate and over by the river, we don't have the ability to travel to Chicagoland 5 hours each way just for that hour meeting.
That's a really good point, Bobby. Yeah, and just as you say, just sharing that opinion, saying, okay, let's look ahead. Whenever it is 6 months, 9 months, 12 months down the road, when a lot of us might say, oh, we feel comfortable meeting in person again, you saying it now, that's really important. And it's good that you're saying it now. Let's not meet in person. I'm sorry, go ahead, Elizabeth.
I will say that I have, with, reasonable success, I believe, held hybrid meetings with my book club and my board where I have a conference room mic and a computer and a camera that's focused on the people in the room and picking their voices up. And I project the rest of the people on Zoom on the wall and plug them through the sound system. And, the book club has discussions. We had outside discussions when we sat on the front lawn, and my mother in South Dakota dialed into Zoom and broadcast out through a speaker. So if we could encourage people to make some of those things happen too. So it's not an either or. If you really want to meet in person, make it also accessible for people who need to be remote because of distance or staffing or whatever.
Cool, thank you. Okay, so some good comments here. And once again, whatever your comments are, good, bad, or otherwise, I would be happy to listen to them, pass them on, or of course you can contact Kendall and he can pass them on. So it's worth thinking about. So, okay, good talk. Thank you very much for those of you who shared. Anyone else have any topics that we have not brought up yet? Did I miss a question in the chat? Anything that you really, really want to discuss?
I will say this is our longest users group meeting in years.
You're right. And I do realize we have lost a fair amount of our attendees. I get that. But thank you so much for the folks that have stayed, because this is the information that we as a group should be discussing and should be sharing with each other. So thank you so much. Okay, so I think we're going to move on. Cheers time. Oh, it's so tempting to take this time and share all of my deep thoughts and feelings and ideas with everyone, but I'm not going to. So once again, if anyone has any concerns, questions on any of the topics that we have brought up, please reach out. Do not feel like you have to wait until May to share a suggestion or to ask a question that's been really bothering you. Please do take advantage of all of the information that RSA is putting on their website. We saw only a little bit of it today. And mark down these dates right here. The 11th of May, which is the second Tuesday. It'll be once again in the afternoon, and that'll be on Zoom. the 5th of August, which is the first Thursday. If you didn't hear earlier, these meetings are being moved around from day to day because sometimes days are just, one day is not convenient for another. It's possible that the meeting in August will be partially in person, and that decision will not be made today. It will be made much closer to August. So stay tuned for that. But of course, there will be the Zoom option. If you do not feel comfortable meeting in person, we will not force you. So there's always going to be that Zoom option.
And Peoria has volunteered to hold this in their big, huge conference room. So if it's advisable that we could get together, we would have plenty of space to stretch out in that room as well. So we probably won't make that decision until sometime in July, probably early July, because Lord knows it's far too early to project at this point.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Well, I think we are at that wonderful time in our meeting where I'm sorry, do we have to vote on an adjournment, Kendall, or can we just adjourn? I declare this meeting adjourned. I appreciate everyone's time and ideas and patience. I really do. And yeah, keep in touch, especially those of you who are joining us for the first time. If you're still here, thank you so much. Keep in touch. Don't be strangers.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.